All right, what's up, guys? We are back with another podcast episode. This time we are actually in Arizona, and we have a guest that needs no introduction because I promise that if you watch our content, you definitely watch John Q's content here. So today we're just going to be talking a bunch of stuff about paddles, why we do reviews the way we do. John and I have a lot of similarities, nerding out about John's ball cannon and a whole bunch of other things. So if you want to skip to a specific spot, timestamps are always in the description. But otherwise, it's great to have you here, John.
Howdy, fellas. It is great to be sitting beside you both.
Thank you.
I'm a fan of the show. I watch you guys all the time. I always have. Right?
Appreciate it.
Since the very beginning. Yeah.
Right back at you.
Yeah. So it's fun. Yeah.
It's fun to have you. We've technically done a pod with you. That one we did way back when we all kind of first met, where it was like me, you, Will, Braden. But we haven't ever had you just solo on the show. And I was like, there's so many things that I feel like we do very similar, and obviously within our things we definitely do different as well. So I thought it'd just be super fun to kind of go over some of it, because as you and I were chatting this week, I think something we realized is there's a lot of things that are obvious to us as reviewers why we do them the way we do, and then to other people it's like that doesn't make any sense. But I think if you have the context, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, for sure. This will be a lot of fun. Some insight into the life of a paddle reviewer. And I'd just like to say, we actually are all friends. This is the third time we've stayed in an Airbnb together? Fourth?
At least, yeah.
Minimum, probably more.
So I figured one time you might stay in an Airbnb with some people you kind of are okay with, and then you kind of might just split off and never do that again. But given that we have stayed together 4 times-ish, yeah, I think that we're on friendship levels that are pretty strong.
I'd definitely say so.
I feel like there's definitely been times where people think we're just not friends or something, because it's like, oh, you guys are competitors or whatever. It's like, dude, we all have the same goal here.
Yeah, for sure.
The same goal. So, all right, let's kick it off with the first topic. So we just have a couple pieces of news before we get into some of the main stuff we want to talk about. So one of the things that was circulating around a ton while we were out at the Mesa tournament was Honolulu's new grit, which I don't have the name off the top of my head. It's like ocean blue something.
Crystal blue endurance surface.
There it is. Thank you. I'm glad you had that off the top of your head. So this is interesting to me, and I'll be curious to get kind of your take on it, because I think it's both frustrating and maybe a good thing the way they did it, but we'll kind of pick everyone's brain here. So I'll give all the context. So for those of you who don't know, Honolulu just recently announced that they will have a more durable grit texture. That's what all the companies are focusing on right now, and I'm sure will be a huge focus for 2026. And the J6CR had been on pre-order, I think, since November. And, people started getting them maybe late December, mid-January. Maybe there were some that were even pushed back depending on how large the batch was. And now if you bought it within the last month, Honolulu's out here going, hey, we got a basically just definitively better model for you. And so I feel like if you bought one, that's kind of frustrating. But the other quick info, first of all, approval isn't even known yet. We have no idea if this grit will pass testing. Honolulu themselves in an email said they aren't super confident it will pass USAP testing, and they are pursuing UPAA testing as well, which I think a lot of companies are going to do now that 11.624 did. And then the last thing I'll say is they're going to offer a kind of help thing for the customer. You can spend $80 or $90 and they'll give you the new paddle. You can keep your old one if you already bought one. But part of me goes well, if you just bought one, another $80 or $90 still kind of sucks. If you just bought one, you're a little soured, right?
Yeah, maybe. I actually talked to somebody at the tournament today, and he's like, hey, what do you think of the new blue grid? And I'm like, I have no idea. Right?
I don't even have it.
I don't have it. It sounds cool, but wait to give you my opinion until I've tried it. But I was like, he ordered it. He told me he ordered it, and he was actually pretty stoked about the system. He was like, listen, I got the J2 and F, and this blue grit, if Honolulu stands by its word, it's going to be good. And it's basically like getting a freshie paddle for $90, right?
Sure.
And for something with longer grit. I imagine that's not everybody's story. I imagine some people are going to be pretty salty about it, and or they're like, all right, I'm ready to pull the trigger on the J6CR or the J2 CR, and now I need to wait 2 more months because I want the grit, right? So
I definitely think there's going to be a lot of people like that who think it's a great system, but or also people who are probably frustrated by it. But I think most of the audience that is into Honolulu, probably mostly enthusiasts who like to buy paddles, so they're probably not that upset by it. You know, I just think that's kind of the core audience of Honolulu. So.
Yeah, I think it's like very interesting because on one hand I go, okay, I'm glad you're not just withholding this for maybe another 6 or 8 months and then milking everyone for like extra profit at full price. But then I'm just like, man, like, I mean, I've seen a handful of comments online that are like, I just bought one and I'm never buying another one because I feel like I'm already out of date. And then the other part of me goes, okay, well, if you got it in January and the expected ship date is like April, I almost wouldn't be surprised if it was a little later than that with approvals and all these things. If that happens, it's like, okay, well, you know, you got 3-4 months out of it and now you got a new one for $90 with better grit. But the question is like, what certifications is it going to have? Because if it's only UPAA, that might affect you. It might not.
Yeah.
It just depends, you know?
Yeah. This is kind of an odd system that we're in where paddle companies are, you know, doing the pre-sale. And I understand from the paddle company's perspective, doing the pre-sale because they can put the orders in China and the factories and, you know, get it shipped out. And you've got kind of, you're flagging to people, okay, I've got these products ready. And you might get your paddle in a couple weeks or a month or now 2 months. And it's been good so far for the consumers. I haven't heard many complaints or grumblings, but I wonder how much patience the consumer has in terms of how long do I want to wait for this paddle? Because, I mean, 2 months in the paddle world is quite a long time. You don't know what's going to come around in the next 2 months. If you order the J2 Blue Grit, you know, CR Blue Grit, is there going to be something bigger and better at that time? Clearly, you can cancel your order and stuff, but I think it's an experiment. No shade to the paddle companies, but I feel like we're nearing the patience tolerance of the consumers at this point at 2 months out.
I completely agree.
100%.
I mean, I ranted a little bit about this with the Volair, which again, I'm only using them as an example because it was a recent one. I realize not everything was their fault in this situation, but when you have these early pre-order windows and it just keeps getting pushed back, you're just sitting there as a consumer going like, dang, like I ordered this months ago and everything's coming out. Like, look at all these. Since December, we've had like the 11.624 Vapor Power 2, the Spartus P1's pretty exciting, and like a slew of other paddles that have all been, generated some buzz. So I just feel like it's got to be frustrating to want a new paddle and then just keep waiting while all these new things come out. And they go like, should I buy that instead? Like, I don't know.
For sure.
But at the same time, if you have bought something within, say, the last 3 to 4 months, we've said this multiple times, just because something new comes out doesn't always mean like it is definitively better or you need to go buy something new. Obviously, a lot of people have that FOMO or want the new tech, but like these paddles from 3-4 months ago or even further, we talk about it all the time, the Prism or the Mach 2 Forza are still fantastic paddles, right? Like even though they may be somewhat outdated, they still perform fine.
Yeah, 100%. Are they crystal blue though?
You know, they're not. They're not.
So I got a little scoop from Jam on it, and if he doesn't want me to tell this, I'll ask him. We'll cut it out if so. But apparently he used to own a firearms business, and this is technology he used on his pistols, like on the, what's that thing you pull back with your thumb?
The hammer?
The hammer, yeah. Like a grit on the hammer, and it's using a similar technology. So he does have some background in a similar, sense in terms of making the grit, but found it interesting.
Yeah, he did mention, they'd said something about that in their email they sent out to like consumers, that at least it was using technology from their firearms experience. So it'll be very interesting. I think, and we'll get to it more later, but all these different grits is just going to be interesting to see who the leader is. Does it even matter who the leader is if we are actually getting considerably longer from hex grit, permagrit, and whatever else? Like some of them still need to be more thoroughly tested, but some of these so far, I mean, I just played the P1 in this Mesa tournament, and I crossed 100 games now with it, and I'll have to go home and retest everything. But like, spin is, I am not complaining about spin on that paddle. In fact, I mean, even when I played you the other day, you were like, I've never seen you do this to a ball before.
No, 100%. Yeah. You're putting some shape in the ball I've never seen before. But yeah, and then just to wrap it up, in terms of like that pre-order window and all of that, it also puts us reviewers kind of in a weird spot. Like for me, and I think for you all too, it's like crystal clear. We're not gonna endorse anything that's not on the market or not approved yet. So I'm not asking anybody to go out and buy this Blue Crystal grit. And, Jam is sending me some samples to run spin testing on. So it's still like in beta, very much in beta phase. And he's open about that, right? Yeah. He's not saying this is final, but I'm not going to like go promote. Definitely don't use my code on the Blue Grit, until after I've tested it and it's been approved and everything. But yeah, it puts reviewers, I think, in a weird spot. And I understand the perspective of like, okay, some reviewers like are Johnny on the spot in terms of getting information out to the consumers, and there's a spot for that. But, do you advertise your affiliate code too for something that's not out yet? That's
that you don't even know how it performs.
Exactly.
Or if it's even going to get approved.
Exactly. So
there's a lot of like mystery in that.
For sure.
No, I completely agree. I'm kind of at the stage now where, I mean, look, if I can be early and still have felt like I did my homework and I understood, or I got to play test the paddle, totally fine making a paddle or putting something out. But like, I just, like with this Crystal Grit, I mean, everything we just talked about, that's the extent of what I know. No, I couldn't tell you if it's good, couldn't tell you if it's bad.
Yeah.
And I definitely can't tell you to go buy it.
That's the thing, you said earlier, it's definitively better. We don't actually know if it's going to be definitively better. Mm-hmm. You'd like to think if it's going to be supposedly a more durable grit texture, longer lasting surface, you'd hope or assume that it's going to be better, but who knows? We don't know. It might actually perform worse.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
so until we actually get it in hand, can't say anything for certain.
Yeah. And I think this whole system, like Honolulu's built up a lot of trust with consumers. They put out a lot of great products, and that's well warranted. But this is kind of like taking a deposit out of that trust. Like, we got this Blue Grit. You can order it now. We don't know. We can't tell you exactly what's going on, if it's whether or not it's going to be approved or how durable it's actually going to be. But we do think it's going to be more durable. So there's a lot of ifs in that, and they'll probably pull it off again, maybe. But I can't say that definitively. But yeah, it's definitely a risk for the fact of that company, Honolulu, also.
Very interesting choice, like releasing this video, letting it get out, or telling. I don't know if people were told to push it or whatever. Just like it just got everywhere, exploded. Right? So I feel like that's something that you'd want to keep a bit behind doors until it's actually released.
A little more controls on it. But I am not a paddle company, so don't know what they're going through.
Same. But so Carbon, I'm sure by the time this is out, I'm sure other people have talked about it, so you're probably already well aware, but Carbon's releasing a new paddle, the TruFoam Barrage. I believe pre-orders are going up $314. Release date is $317. The price will be $280, and they went with the formula that works for the most part, which is an EPP center core. They are using their void structure. It's a completely different one than the Genesis and the Waves. It's basically circular holes all up and down the face, and then 14 millimeter again. I guess the difference is EPP center core, EVA ring, and then there's an EPP kind of frame that goes around the entire thing, which is different than what other companies have done, and should, in theory, add probably a little more stability with a little bit more weight at the edges. But there is no long-lasting grit. It's raw carbon fiber. And I already said this, but price of $280. So I've hit a prototype a while back. I have no idea if that was even close to final, so I'm not going to talk about what I had hit, but I think the more interesting talking point about this to me is $280. Like, I didn't expect Carbon to go lower because that's kind of just where they are. But I mean,
it would look weird if you placed a new paddle with supposedly better tech below the Waves, your last performance paddle. So they kind of had to do it, but at the same time, it is an awkward price point right now.
I mean, it's just so many. Like, I know I keep talking about the Spartus P1, but Spartus P1 11624, like with the grits on those showing very good performance and the paddles perform really well. I'm just like 250 to 280 plus. I'm like, you have to do something different or better, I feel like, to stand out. I know people are going to buy it because it's Carbon and they have a loyal fan base, which is, great for Carbon, but I just don't know who I'm going to recommend this to. Maybe it's amazing, but I imagine it's going to play in the realm of a lot of other paddles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the technology sounds good. It is thermoformed. I like what they're doing with the EPP in the center, EVA band around it, and then EPP again outside of that, because like you said, EPP is denser than EVA, so it's going to add some twist weight and stability to it. I was looking at the X-ray, and it does look really similar to what 6.0 is doing with their coral and their black opal. But instead of their whatever that white foam is that 6.0 is using, they're using EPP, and the EVA band is very similar. So similar arrangement. 6.0 doesn't have the holes like carbon. But I imagine that for people that found the TruFoam Genesis and Waves not to their liking, but do like other full foam paddles, this is going to be an upgrade. Because it is thermoform, stiffer frame, and it's got, more forgiveness with that EVA band on it. To your point, is $280 too much to ask? I mean, the market is just full of really good paddles right now, and it runs the gamut. I guess it's, the bigger question is, does everybody need to be racing to the bottom? Does everybody need to be selling paddles that play objectively good, but similar to each other for $100, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't think we're at that extreme yet, but yeah, Carbon did do a lot of R&D to bring EPP to the forefront, so that's of value. And like you said, they have a very, very loyal fan base, and I think we're going to talk about this next in the pod, but how much is too much for a paddle, and is anything above $200 actually worth it? I think there's a big group of people that aren't paddle enthusiasts that want to pay the price of a premium paddle and have that peace of mind knowing that, okay, if I'm paying $300 to Joola, I know I'm getting a Joola paddle, which everybody else is playing with and all the pros are playing with. Or I think Carbon is getting close to that level now.
And of course, there's always that element of status. There's always going to be a bit of a status piece that comes with, a boomstick, a Pro 4, Pro 5, or a Carbon, so people 100%. Are definitely willing to pay a premium to have that.
For sure.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting to me. And also with how quick this came out, I mean, I know there were a lot of, I don't know if I'd say a lot, but there were people who clearly liked the Waves, but with how quick this came out, I'm like, okay, the Waves must not have been doing so hot, if the Barrage is coming out and is supposed to be looking at the thing, I'm like, this feels like it describes everything the Waves was supposed to be. Like the way it's being kind of pitched now is like the Waves is like you really like dwell and you want to shape your drives, and then the Barrage just seems to be this like very much all juice, lots of pop, lots of power.
But at the same time, if they wait too long to release it, then we're gonna say what? Then now you're way too late.
No,
right?
I completely agree.
They have to release it now.
Yeah.
Otherwise, then it's like, well, what was even the point of releasing this now? If it's not something completely different. So it's good that they're releasing it soon and not waiting.
Yeah.
I'd rather see them drop it now than wait.
Yeah, I definitely think they had to do it quicker, but I'll be curious when I get it. 280 is just it's a steep asking price.
I know. I have more thoughts on the price thing. We'll get into that later.
Okay. That's an interesting chart that they put up comparing the TruFoam Genesis Waves and Barrage. They're calling the Barrage the most powerful of the three in terms of both power and pop. A little less control than the other two, and a little less spin than the other two, which is interesting. They would say that.
Okay.
And then the sweet spot on it is they have it looks like mostly equal to the Genesis and a little better than the Waves. So they're being honest with this spin in the sweet spot, right?
Props.
I feel like that's pretty rare from companies.
It's not the classic, we maxed it all out. It's all power, but it's all control, baby.
You have 9.5.
You got the control of a Mach 2 Forza, but you got the pop of a boomstick. Yeah, right.
Yep.
So I don't have too many more thoughts on the Barrage because we don't have it yet. But if you wanted to know a little bit more about the Barrage, that's what we had right now.
I've at least been talking to today and yesterday a lot of the Carbon pros who have used it, and so far the general consensus is that they all prefer it over the Waves or any of the other. I know, right? Well, especially in your opinion, compared to any of the, the Genesis or the Waves. So people the people who have it seem to adopt it well.
And it's interesting they went with 14 millimeter also. And I know they kind of, characterize themselves as being we can make 14 feel like 16, but EPP, you can use lighter, less dense EPP, and they have all these holes in it. So, they could come in way under 8 ounces at 16 millimeter thickness if they wanted to. So
we've seen other companies do it.
Yeah.
I really find it odd that some of these brands hold on to concepts like it is just going to forever be their identity and they can never switch up on it. I mean, Selkirk for the longest time, it was edgeless, throat hole, like this is the best, we're not changing it. Obviously they finally did. Now we have the boomstick.
Right.
And Carbon really seems to be hung up on this 14 thing. Like I just don't understand why not have more options?
Yeah.
Especially because, I mean, for the most part, I would say, I mean, obviously there's a little bit of preference, but I think if you surveyed 100 people, I think the majority are choosing a 16 foam paddle long-term over the 14 options we have seen. We've seen some solid 14 options. I think the Volair Shift is a pretty good 14 millimeter option, but I mean, think about how many amazing 16 millimeter foam paddles we have.
Yeah. I even saw Chris Hayworth today. He went back to the Tornazo.
Yeah. Over the blade.
Yeah, the blade was a 14 millimeter full foam.
Yep.
Which I thought would be better for singles, but he's, he likes that Tornazo now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, we have one more paddle. We'll go over here. The Joola Pro 5. So that's why we're all here, is because we were here for the Pro 5 launch event. We really haven't gotten to hit it much. As of the time of recording this, we're just finishing the Mesa PPA tournament on Saturday. And at the event, we got to hit it a little bit, but it wasn't super extensive. And then all of us, we've been hitting our mains because we had to go and play in a tournament. So by the time you see this, I imagine both you and I will probably have videos out where we will have hit it. But at the current time of recording this video, we will not have hit it.
We've hit it for one night.
Yeah.
We had one night of play.
But no comparisons and all that.
Right.
So what I kind of want to talk about more is just like maybe pricing, the Gen 3 concept, just the direction they decided to go and pick everyone's brain on this. Because there were rumors that it was going to be a Gen 3 again. It is a Gen 3 again with a, personally, what I would call a relatively minor tweak. I know Joola is like really pitching this as like a pretty huge innovation, and maybe as I play with it, I will agree. But on paper, if you're just looking at it as a consumer, you're going, not much changed.
Right.
You added this little frame to the paddle that makes it flex a little different. Okay. I guess just what's your guys' take? It seems like it's more expensive and it's another Gen 3 in a world where everyone seems to be going to foam.
Can we talk about the technology or is it?
To my understanding, we can. And if we can, I'll just cut it out.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I get it. Joola doesn't want to be a follower, and we've seen all the other companies, adopt full foam or at least dabble in it. And on the other hand, why would they when the Pro 4s are still selling like hotcakes? We were just at this tournament, and it was all boomsticks and Pro 4s, right? And
everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere. And they're also catering to the pros. And I imagine Ben Johns wants nothing to do with a full foam paddle at this point. He's very locked into his Perseus shape, honeycomb polypropylene, and he likes a little bit of neck flex, and that's what they did. So to me, it feels like they made this paddle for Ben Johns, and everybody else is, going to buy it because Ben Johns is using it.
Yeah.
So one interesting thing, and I have more on the tech, but I had an interesting thought that just came up. We're getting closer and closer to like how tennis is, where, companies advertise, this is the racket that Sinner's playing with, or this is the racket that Federer's playing with. But obviously they're playing with something completely different. Maybe the mold is somewhat similar, but internally, or there's added things to it that are completely different. It's just painted the same, right? Why not make something? I genuinely think that consumers would be more interested in buying a foam paddle now. Just color it different or color it the same and make a Gen 3 version for Ben. Mm-hmm. They've done that in the past. I'm not 100% sure on this, so don't quote me on this, but I feel like from conversations before with like UPAA stuff, I feel like they're trying to avoid pros using something different that you can't actually buy. Like it'd be fine if you had it on the UPAA list, but you can't show it like, hey, it's a Pro 5, but it's actually just a Pro 4. I don't know what I see the issue with that is, though. Like, why would that be such a bad thing?
I don't know, but that's what I feel like I had last heard. So it seems like what they're trying to avoid.
Sure.
But it does seem like it would solve some of the issue in terms of like, hey, maybe consumers, like we talked about this a little bit. I said this at the event. I don't think it matters what Joola releases. Joola could literally recreate the loco, and everyone who likes Joola would now bow down to that paddle. They would say, oh my
100%.
gosh, it is the best paddle that has ever been released. Joola has changed the game, even though the paddles already existed. So it's like, it doesn't matter what they release. Even this, what I think we'd probably all agree is generally a minor change so far, will still be probably one of 2026's most popular paddles.
100%.
Because that's how big Joola is.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's overall, after talking with you guys and others that were at the event, it's pretty minor changes and really not a bump up in performance and more of a step to the side and just and they're not discontinuing the Pro 4 or the 3S. They're keeping those in their line. It's more of just does this fit your feel preference now, which is another thing that we're going to talk about at some point.
Right.
It's just a difference in feel.
Yeah, I totally agree. Speaking of feel, in our 30 minutes of playtime with it, what did you feel? What did you feel in terms of the feel profile? How it changed?
Pretty minor overall. I would say it just has a bit more rigid and stiff feel to it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I think it has a bit more of a stiffer feel than the Pro 4.
I would have said the same thing. The problem is, so I hit a Cosmos 14 millimeter first. Didn't know it was a 14 millimeter, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I had a Pro 4, and I was like, this is so much stiffer. And then when I realized it was a 14, I was like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. And then I hit I hit another Pro 5. I hit an Agassi, and then 16, and was like, okay, this is less stiff. So it's like, I really need some time to sit down and compare. But the 14 was like, I was like, this is stiff as a board. And the sweet spot did not feel that awesome.
It's really funny how last year you liked the 14 Pro 4 over the 16 Pro 4, and now it's flipped. Now you prefer the 16 over the 14 this year.
From the very limited hitting, yeah, I would have picked the 16 in a heartbeat over the 14.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I only played with the 16, and I played with the Perseus and the Cosmos shape. And I felt like, so if the original Perseus 4 is, or Pro 4s all in general, are stiff and hollow, I would put it a little softer, but still hollow, but getting a little bit closer to that denser side. So just a little bit down in stiffness and hollowness from where it was before. Yeah.
Sure.
But that was the 16.
Sure.
Yeah. I'll have a better idea when I hit them all side by side. But
we got to pick our shapes. I was surprised Isaac picked the Scorpius 14 millimeter.
Hey, it's not April Fool's yet, John. It's a little early, okay?
That was pretty good.
That was really
a pretty
funny.
good joke, John.
So yeah, wait. So we all got to pick one shape to take home from the event. What was your pick?
Cosmos.
Yeah,
and obviously you
Cosmos.
went with Cosmos again. And if anyone is surprised, 16 millimeter Perseus is what I took, not the 14 millimeter Scorpius.
Yeah.
And now it's interesting. Anna Bright's paddle is now 16. She went to a 16 instead of a 14.
Well, and both the 16 and the 14 are now on a Bright signatures, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. It's just going to be interesting to see, like, especially with the price getting increased. I just have a lot of thoughts. Like, people are going to buy it. It's going to be a good paddle. Joola Pros are going to continue to win with the paddle, but it's like, it's another Gen 3. Almost certainly it's still going to core crush like Gen 3s. I saw so many broken Gen 3s at this tournament.
Yeah,
Like,
today.
it's ridiculous. I just made a whole video about this and people are still using them. And so it's like, and Joola's customer service has historically not been great. Like, if you look all over Reddit, all over my Discord, very slow warranties. So, and it's like, that's just one of the things that's like, I think I said this at the event. Like, one of the things I am impressed with, not as a consumer, but as like looking at them as a brand, the brand power that they have created is so strong, and people believe that the paddle performance is so good that they'll put up with high prices, breaking, and bad warranty. Any other company does that, they can't get away with that unless, like, if they're a smaller company, they'd have to have just elite tier performance.
I'll give it to them. They have done an incredible job at scaling their company and really dominating and taking over the market in terms of popularity, right? And not to say that their paddles don't perform well. They obviously are very good performance paddles. I think we've all always said that, but I don't think they will ever take over the category of value.
Yeah, I don't think they're looking to either. And,
yeah, for sure.
Speaking of the durability, they did something to increase durability in the interface between the foam and the honeycomb, but we'll have to test it.
Yeah, they added a layer of carbon fiber just in between the layer of EVA and the honeycomb, because the honeycomb
At the very top.
Only at the top. It doesn't go around the sides. It's only at the top because that's the most common place where core crushing happens. It's the most volatile because when they cut the honeycomb, obviously cells can be damaged. So they reinforced it at the top. I asked some questions about at the conference whether or how much testing and research they've done on core crushing. They kind of seemed a bit dismissive about it. They didn't have a ton of answers. They admitted that yes, they hope this helps, but it will still core crush.
Yeah. I mean, the claim was clearly not, this won't prevent core crushing entirely, which would be kind of a crazy statement for any Gen 3.
That would be a wild claim if they were claiming it would never core crush. So any Gen 3 construction, as we all know, is going to core crush at some point. It's just a matter of when. And I don't know. Hopefully it lasts a little bit longer, but how much longer, right? I don't see this being like that little reinforcement being, oh, now it's going to last 6 months longer, right? Maybe you'll get an extra couple weeks, maybe a month. Who knows? It all depends on the player, and we're going to have to do our own testing.
Yeah. I think one of the things that was most interesting to me is also it's just a regular raw carbon fiber paddle.
Yep.
No longer lasting texture. And so it's like, okay, $300, Gen 3, no long lasting grit. I'm like, that's going to, if the Pro 5 truly survives an entire year as still one of the most popular paddles, which I think it most likely will because it's Joola, that's just unbelievably impressive because you have amazing paddles at $100, really good paddles at $200 with better grit. I don't know.
I really think to lose the position Joola has in the market right now, they would have to come out with something so bad that Ben, Fed, Anna Bright just lose first round. Right. And that's just never going to happen. So yeah, it's very interesting. I think it was an odd choice building it the way they did. But now, obviously, we've talked about all the things that aren't that different. But let's talk about like the things that they did change and the tech that they've put into it, right? That new frame in the paddle.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I saw was that they removed the foam from the neck of the paddle and replaced it with a carbon fiber frame that gets thinner. And the idea behind that is to add some flex to the neck, which can be very polarizing on a paddle. So like sometimes if you get too much neck flex, it just feels flimsy, and you get some twisting in there that creates like a bad sweet spot. So I went into this like, oh man, Joola's adding flex to their paddles. What's going on here? But I had to say, in the 30 minutes I played with it, it felt good. Like it's not a demotion from the performance on the Pro 4. I'd say it's a lateral move from the Pro 4, like you said, for field preferences.
And
so
they added a new type of foam around that thinner part in the frame. I don't remember what they're calling it or exactly what it is.
Oh, is it foam around the neck?
Yeah, the carbon fiber
that
piece.
Okay.
Thinner piece of the frame. They showed us examples, cut open ones, and I got to hold it. It is some type of foam. It's pretty soft and flexible. Okay. It's not a dense foam. So, I don't know exactly what the materials or what they're calling it. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, what were your thoughts? Was this something that you noticed while playing? Is it what are your thoughts on this tech in general?
I mean, I had 30 minutes with it, so I can't really speak intelligently about it. Maybe that's what was causing me to think it felt softer. Just got a little bit more flex in there, but it wasn't a bad feel. Like I don't like a lot of flex in my paddles, but I could play with this one just fine. Did you guys notice any differences?
I wouldn't say it was a big difference. Like I know, they showed us some stuff, some videos that was like the intent behind it was that the launch angle was supposed to be better in that when it comes off the paddle of like a diving board paddle, your launch angle could deviate a little bit, and that could be the difference between in or out, which is kind of what they were pushing. Like this paddle will have more precision. But I also think there's like so many things that go into like that could go into that matter. Like one, they showed the difference between the Pro 4 and the Pro 5, but what about literally the rest of the market and ones that don't do like a full horseshoe diving board? Like if you take a full band of EVA and run that paddle through the same test, do we see a higher launch angle deviation? Do we see it lower? Like I started wondering about other paddles. Like, okay, we know from the Pro 4, but we have no idea for anything else. So not something I noticed while playing. Like I wasn't like, oh man, I just feel like I'm pinpoint laser accurate now. But maybe with more time playing between both of them, I'll go, you know what? It actually is, compared to a Pro 4, maybe a little easier to hit the spot I'm trying to hit.
I also think from the test they showed us, and they showed us a graphic of showing how it's supposed to flex, and I thought it was pretty gimmicky, but then they did show us real world slow-mo cannon shots on the paddle, and we did see that flex example happen in the real world.
Yeah.
But the difference from the Pro 4 launch angle deviation to the Pro 5, in my mind, was so minuscule. And we talked about this, John, on the car ride. As humans, if we hit a ball and it launches to an area we don't want, we just automatically adjust to it on ourselves. So how much of it going to actually affect us, or how much is people going to notice, especially as you go down lower in the ranks?
Right.
I personally don't see it affecting people that much.
Yeah, what they showed us on high speed, I mean, it was pretty cool. So the neck is flexing so that my hand is the paddle face and my wrist is the handle. The neck flexes when the ball hits it, but also the whole face of the paddle, instead of flexing just like a diving board, the whole face of the paddle also goes down. And what they showed was on the Pro 4, it's the diving board that flexes and the ball kind of shoots off at 3 degrees of a different angle, so you get a different ball launch angle. And the one on the Pro 5 shoots off more vertically if the paddle's situated this way. And, that can result in, a couple feet probably distance if you extend those lines to the whole court. But yeah, like we were saying, like different paddles have different launch angles because of grit and other things, and you map onto that instinctually. You're not thinking about it, but if you hit a ball on the net, you can open your paddle face a little bit more on the next one to get the ball out.
And it's kind of like as grit wears down, right? Like as you play with the paddle over time, you're constantly adjusting to the grit wearing, right?
Yeah.
If you played with a paddle for 6 months, you've probably still feel okay with it for the most part. But then if you grab a brand new paddle, you're going to immediately notice a big difference, right? So it's very similar. We're constantly adjusting and understanding the changes of these paddles.
Their claim was more consistency because of the different angle, which I think to earn that title, you need to check for how much variation is there in that angle over 100 shots, instead of saying this paddle shoots at this angle, this paddle shoots at this angle, therefore this angle is more accurate than this angle. I mean, maybe Ben Johns can dial that in enough, and the ball is going to be a big factor in this. If you hit on the hole of the ball versus in between the holes, that causes a different angle. But yeah, I don't think most people would recognize it, but it is built for elite players, and people are naturally going to buy it, just like we said. That's the model, right?
They did say that this was not intended for, 3.5s, 4.0s, 4.5s. It was designed for their pros and their highest level players.
Right.
But of course, like you said, everyone's still going to buy it.
Yeah. And I think it's the idea of like designing for your pros is totally fine, right? Like if that's what your pros want, which is a big marketing piece of Joola, you want them to keep winning and be happy. Yeah, you need to build paddles around them that they're happy with and they want to use. Like I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just think what's always very interesting when Joola's in the conversation is it's always, well, Ben uses it, Anna Bright uses it, Fed uses it, so it's got to be the best. It's like, okay, well, they're all paid to use it. So like, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Clearly they like the paddle, but like, I think just because someone who is the best uses it does not mean it's the best paddle. I mean, look at Anna Lee Waters. Did any of us think the Paddle Tech was the best paddle? No. I think it would be crazy to call that the best paddle just because the best player in the world uses it. And same thing with her going to Franklin. Is Franklin suddenly the best paddle in the world because Anna Lee uses it? No.
She's not even using her own signature paddle.
Currently, yeah. She's using an elongated.
Using Hayden's.
So, I don't know. I'll give it more time. I think people who like Gen 3s, I imagine there's going to be a group of people who go, ooh, I liked the last Gen 3 better. I like the Pro 4 more. And some people who are going to go, you know what? This is a big enough upgrade that I like it. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think really at the end of the day, and we'll go into this here about $200 plus paddles being worth it or not, is so much of it in the current paddle market is not that the new, more expensive paddle is better. It's that it's slightly different and it might fit what you want perfectly, but that doesn't mean you have to spend that much money to get good performance. But if you are okay with it and it's exactly what you want, go for it.
I mean, yeah, it's great to have more options now, right? Like the field preference between a 3S, a Gen 4, or a Pro 4, a Pro 5, the Luz Cannon, the Aura Pro, all these different Gen 3 style constructions, or even Franklin's. There's just whatever, it'll fit any field preference.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I guess let's just go into this. Well, unless anyone has anything else they want to say about the Pro 5.
Well, one thing I just want to say is like, it was really cool at the event to get to see, again, meet and talk to a lot of these people who work at Joola, see how things work. And, I think a lot of people view them as this, big corporate evil, and even though I think their paddles are not the best value, I appreciate what Joola does for the sport, right? Because I think these bigger companies actually do a lot more for the sport than a lot of these smaller companies, because these smaller companies are able to price their paddles really low, but they're really not doing anything other than making paddles for the sport, where Joola has a lot of foundations. They sponsor a lot of things. They sponsor the tour. They pump money back into the sport and communities, which I think is great. And so it's just really cool to get to see all the things they're working on and doing around not only just the country, but the world. They're big in Asia right now. They're pushing that really hard. So it was cool and refreshing to get to see that.
Yeah. I think their culture, their company culture is pretty tight. Like it's not fake. They weren't trying to, sell us on Joola in a cheesy way. It's just like they all get along. They're highly effective. They have a media team that produced a video just for us in one evening based on, we went to play with and interview the pros. What night was it? Tuesday night. And then Wednesday morning, they showed us a video that they like.
The event started at like 7:30 or 6:30, and the video was complete by the morning.
Yeah.
So very impressive what they were doing over there. And yeah, not great people, nice people. They're not, out to get anyone. They're not trying to do anything shady. Yeah. So it's cool to get to see.
I will say, I respect this. I'm saying this as a good thing. But I appreciate that they were blunt in their own ways about, like, there was times where they said something about, like, reviewers do this. We think this is unfair. Or, I think this is kind of, like, ridiculous or silly. And it's like, okay, I may or may not agree. Depends on what it is. But I appreciate them actually saying that instead of just being nice to your face and then turn around and they're like, more. I mean, they could
back
still
home
be,
in the
they
office.
could still be doing that. Maybe they're just more blunt in the office. But I was like, okay, you know what? I'm fine with this. Like, we can all have a conversation about this. I'd rather that than me think you like me and then you're just like, nah.
It's great to have the conversation. I mean, obviously, we're constantly giving these brands feedback on their products, but not very often are we getting feedback on our product, or what we do with our videos.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
It was good to have the conversation.
Totally. So there'll be tons more Pro 5 content coming soon as everyone gets to hit it more. But that's where we are right now. Let's move on to this whole $200 paddle thing. So I see this all the time. I feel like it comes up on Reddit a lot. Why spend 200 plus? Is it even possibly worth it anymore? If the $100 paddles are so good, why would you spend more money? And I think there are some reasons, but I think the reasons have gotten very small, and for a very good portion of people, those reasons might not matter. But I won't give those away quite yet. I'm curious what you think, John.
Well, I pulled up my database and ranked paddles from price. So why don't we go through like the most expensive down, a select few down to 200.
Okay,
then
let's do it.
Then we'll have kind of a framework to talk about this. All right, so top Tesla paddle, $350.
Yep.
Trigger warning.
Trigger warning.
Boomstick, $333. Joola Pro 4, 5, $300. Proton Flamingo and Peacock, $280. The new carbon TruFoams and their old ones, $280. Gearbox GX2 Power, also $280. The next tier down is $260. You got the Engage Alpha Pro. There's several for $250, like the Paddletech Honey Foam and Bantam series. The Diadem Edge Blue Core. RPM Friction Pro is also $250. By the way, the ALWC on sale now for $125 on Paddletech's website.
The little Bantam?
They're trying to dump those.
125. Honestly, that's kind of that's a good deal.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie.
Yep. $250 also for the 6.0 Black Opal. $230 for the Franklin C45. Got $230 also for the Luz Inferno and Tornazo. $225 for the Ruby Pro. 200 for the 6.0 coil, 210 for the 11.6 power too. So that's kind of the range. Also interesting that I'd forgotten the 6.0 really tiers the pricing of their paddles so much. It's not just like, so you got one price for the black opal, another for the ruby, and another for the coral.
Coral, yeah.
So there's kind of a sample of
the framework
what we're looking at.
Yeah. So I won't say anything yet. We'll let John speak first. Since we have John here, we might as well let him do the talking.
So the question is it worth it to buy a paddle over $200?
Or in what context is it worth it? Like, I don't think it's always definitively worth it, but like, okay, if I'm a consumer, why should I consider, or why shouldn't I consider spending that much?
Yeah. Well, and in my mind right now, if you're a paddle enthusiast, it probably doesn't make sense to buy something more expensive unless you absolutely love that feel profile and are dialed into the power profile of it. And for example, the boomstick that I'm playing with, yes, I got it for free from Selkirk. If I would have lost my boomstick for this tournament and there was no other thing to do, I would have gone into the Pickleball Central tent and bought a Selkirk boomstick for $333 to play in this tournament because I'm so dialed into it, right? And I'm playing in doesn't mean anything in an amateur tournament, but I'd still be willing to pay that price for it. But I think that's, pretty rare. I think most paddle enthusiasts aren't that picky and they can find something well below $200. Another issue I think that would provide a good argument for buying something over $200 is more durability. And you see the more durable grits coming out. So, the 6.0 Diamond Tough grit is over $200. The 11.6 power 2 is over $200. The Spartus 2.1 P1 is over. I mean, this is before or after code.
220 before, 200 after.
So it's in that range. So yeah, that's another good reason. If you like that more durable grit, then another reason to go up. So outside of that, I think, for the general population, and I probably do this with things that I'm not as familiar with as pickleball paddles, I see the big names. I see, pros endorsing them, or, it's on some show that I recognize. And I don't want to fuss around with analyzing 30 reviews and doing the research. I'll spend the extra money for peace of mind to get a product that is probably good quality. Even if, it would suck later to find out I could have spent half or 3 times less than that, but I'd probably do that,
For the peace of mind.
Yeah, I get the reason why people are buying the more expensive paddles because of the big names. So that's another reason. Not that it's justified, but I'm just saying it's going to happen.
I do it all the time in other markets and industries outside of pickleball that I'm not very familiar with. I mean, even as of recent, getting back into tennis, I'm buying a new tennis racket, and are there tennis rackets that are probably $100, $150 or $180 that would be totally fine for me? Yes, but I'm probably going to end up buying the new version of the Babolat Pure Aero, which is a $300 racket,
right?
And it's top of the line. So, but yeah, I think there are more, like I got into it a little bit before we got into this with Joola. I think there are some people who are conscious about like wanting to support brands that also give back to the sport, right? If you're an enthusiast and you buy a lot of paddles, yeah, you're probably not spending more than $200. You just want to get new tech all the time, or just experience a lot of paddles. But I think the myth of like, oh, these brands make these paddles for $15 or $20 and they mark it up 200%, right? It's just not really a thing. Most of these bigger brands, their cost landed is much higher than what people think it is. Their overhead with employees, marketing, sponsor, like all these things brings the cost up a lot. Obviously, they still have to fit in profit margin. So I think there's a lot more that goes into the price than people really think.
Yeah, for sure. Especially for the bigger companies. I mean, I think it would, if we suddenly just went to everything being $100, the sport, I think, would change drastically. I think Pro Tour would suffer in a lot of ways. Companies' ability to sponsor pros would diminish a lot. So it's like, if you want to support one of these brands, whether you do or don't is, personal choice, what you believe in. But I think it's good that we have the gamut of everything. Mm-hmm. I don't think everyone should have to go down. It's just kind of like, what do you value? And if you do value the higher price, then, or you're not going to probably value spending more, but if you value what that product brings you for the higher price, you'll probably spend it.
For sure. I also think that there's a lot of people who are extremely vocal about, we get this comment all the time when we talk about new bigger name paddles, like, oh, you lost me at $300, I'm out, or whatever. Like people immediately hear that cost and they're gone. But at the same time, people can be mad at these brands for charging that much, but you have to vote with your wallet. People are still buying it and still willing to pay that much. So brands are going to keep raising it until people stop buying the product.
I mean, how many boomsticks did we see at the PPA today? Everywhere.
Almost every court had at least one, and I saw one court with 3 boomsticks and a Pro 4.
Yeah.
Those are the most expensive paddles you can buy.
Yeah. A great point, though, about giving back to the Pro Tour and that sort of thing. I would go so far to say that if every paddle cost $100, there would be no Pro Tour at all.
I think there's a very good chance that would be a thing.
Yeah.
And I think we would all be disappointed.
Yeah.
How much is, and I'm not trying to rag on any brand here, right? I'm just bringing up one of the smaller brands. How much is Rhombus pushing money back into the sport outside of just selling paddles?
Well,
probably very little.
I think it's like you bring value in different ways, right? Like what Rhombus offers is high performance for people who don't have a lot of money to spend. So what you're offering to the sport is, hey, you don't have a great budget, but we can still provide you with something that is competitive with everything on the market. And then the bigger brands offer value in like supporting a pro tour or donating to charities or schools or whatever, learning programs, like all these different things. But like a Rhombus can't do that.
Right.
At that price point.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But it's great we have Rhombus. It's great we have Vatic because now people who can't afford the more expensive paddles can play with the paddle that is 98% as good as the $333 one.
Exactly. And I'm not trying to, like I said, I'm not trying to rag on these brands saying, oh, you need to be pushing money back in the sport. They obviously, that's not what their brand's built on. They don't maybe not have the infrastructure to be able to do that. So I'm not trying to say they need to or force them into it. It's just completely different. Right. And I know a lot of people are conscious about where they're putting their money.
Yeah, 100%.
My thought is when I look at it, if you are an amateur, anywhere between 3.0 and honestly, I would go as high as 5.0 if I'm being completely honest, but you could maybe make arguments like drop it down to 4.5 or something. Look at how good of paddles we have at $100. We have Rhombus with the Quanta. Very good paddle if you put some weight on it. We have the Vatic Pro Diesel. Friday's about to release some new paddles that I'm sure will be cheaper. Or even if you just take the Fever.
Turbos.
The turbos. The enhanced turbos. Those are going to be great performing paddles. And I'm sure there's some other paddles that I'm missing right now. Like
Luz Cannon.
Luz Cannon.
Yeah, that's another great.
I can't believe I forgot that.
So many.
That's a Gen 3 and everyone seems to still really love Gen 3s. People all the way up to Pro could compete and win with those paddles. If you think Ben couldn't go and win with one of those $100 paddles, you are sadly mistaken. Right?
I mean, how many 5.0 divisions have we seen Scott and TJ win with Friday paddles?
Yeah, exactly.
Tons.
Like the price of those almost has nothing to do with the performance. You're just able to get an amazing paddle at a great price. So in my mind, anyone can play with one of those and be fine. So then the question is, okay, well, why would I spend $200? Why would I buy a Loco? Why would I buy a boomstick? Why would I buy any of these things? And to me, when I really think about it these days, it's like, okay, if there's a paddle that is as light as you want, it's the exact shape that you want, it's the feel profile you want, and you're fine going a slightly higher budget. Like, let's take the boomstick for an easy example here. The boomstick has probably one of the most distinct feels of a foam paddle right now that no one else is really matched. The Quanta with some weight can kind of feel similar, but like the boomstick is still kind of its own land. And if you're like, I love the sweet spot and I love how the ball feels when I hit it, and you're fine spending $300, you're not really going to get that anywhere else. So if you're fine with it, then that's your option. And same thing with like something like the Loco or the Spartus P1. And actually we should do a thing where we talk about like what would be the paddle we would go buy with just our own money. We'll talk about that in a second. But like for me, Spartus P1, I would absolutely go spend my own money on that because right now it does literally everything I want it to do. Right. And so it's like I would go spend that extra money because I love everything it's giving me, from sweet spot, the hand speed, the weight, the power level that I'm getting, the longer lasting grit. To me, as a consumer, that would be extra value over some of the $100 ones and the feel profile. But that doesn't mean that the Spartus P1 is actually a way better paddle. It just fits what I want really well. So I feel like that is like to me, it's like when you have the feel you want, that could be worth the premium. But not everyone's going to be like, I want soft and dense, and I'm going to pay an extra $100 for it. Some people go, dude, just give me something that hits hard for $100.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
That's why the Canon exists.
Or the Quanta. Yeah.
That one just needs some weight.
So I don't know if you guys have other thoughts on, spending $200, but that to me is where it all boils down to.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with everything you said. There's just so many options now, and then it comes down to brand loyalty. Yeah, you hit it pretty much nail on the head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am curious though. I mean, you said you would spend, your own money on a boomstick if you had to.
Yeah.
What would you buy if you had to spend your own money?
P1.
Spartus P1. I would say P1 if they had more shapes. Right now, it would definitely be Loco, and then if I need something for UPA because I play qualifiers, probably the Inferno or the Faculos.
Okay. Now here's the question. So obviously, John, you were saying you're really dialed in with the boomstick, and you were saying, even this morning, like, I wouldn't want to use something else right now because the feel profile and the power is so different that like the adjustment would take me a little bit. So for this tournament, obviously, you would go directly to a boomstick. Let's say you took this tournament out. You could choose whatever you want. You have to consistently spend your money on that paddle. Would you still choose a boomstick, or would you go, you know what, like $333 for me, it's great. Still think it's an awesome paddle, but I could probably get most of what I want at a cheaper price, and maybe the money matters more. Or would it still be a boomstick?
It's hard to say because we're all in unique positions where we get the paddles for free and review them. So I probably would have never gotten onto a boomstick if I wasn't a paddle reviewer, because I probably wouldn't want to spend that much money on a paddle. And I would have been dialed into something else and just as happy with that. Right.
Yeah.
So, but now that I play with the boomstick, and it's like you said, it's a very unique feel and power profile. And every time I'm reviewing another paddle, it takes me a few games to dial it in and get used to it. So that's the one for me for the time being. It has been for the last 3 months. But yeah, like I said, if I wasn't a paddle reviewer, I may have never even got onto a Selkirk boomstick.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, what people should know is if you spend under $200, your paddle is not lesser than anything else in the market. You might find one that you're like, you know what? That does a little bit more extra of what I want. And I might be willing to spend like an extra $50 for it. But like, bro, if you can't win a 5-0 tournament with a Vatic Pro V Sol Pro, I'm just saying it's not the paddle.
You may know that paddle's not any lesser than, but when you go to that open play and put your paddle in the slot and people are dodging you because of your paddle, we know people that's happened to.
That's true.
That is honestly a sad part in the community. That happens. Honestly, I've heard a lot of stories of that happening.
Yeah. I agree.
That's the thing.
Totally. And then obviously, I think paying for longer lasting grit, that can be a value add, right?
For sure.
That's why, that for me personally, that's one of the reasons if I was buying one, Spartus P1 would be on my list. All right. We ready to move on to the next one?
Yes, sir.
Did it?
Okay. Want to talk about reviews, because you and I, John, might be probably the most similar in how we think about some of this. And I thought it would be fun to expand it for both of our audiences, talk about why we do it the way we do it, the different approaches and why some may be better than others and different things. But you and I are both pretty slow with reviews. We're not the fastest. In fact, actually, I think I was going through your channel last night. I should have counted, but there's been a review here and there, but there's been some pretty big gaps with reviews. And I know you're working on lots of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Slow-mo cam, the lab, the Canon, like you are busy doing a whole lot of stuff. But let's just talk about it. Like, tell me about your review process and what you go through, like when making a video.
Right. So when I get paddles in, we have a whole system now. And so I have like an intake, and from that intake, as soon as I get it on my doorstep, I bring it down to the intake. Erica grabs it. She does swing weight, twist weight, balance point, static weight, measurements, now deflection. And then it goes to PB core. It gets Q cord. So it goes through all these tests, and that's in a perfect world. It also gets photographed. In a perfect world, all that happens before me and Eddie take it out to the court. But sometimes we're doing the podcast the next day. We'll take it out to the court and that sort of thing. Eddie and I and whoever else, friends, hit with it, them. We'll talk about them on the pod if they're interesting, and continue hitting with them. And if there's enough interest and enough kind of buzz with me and Eddie, then it'll get a full review. So that's kind of the, cliff notes of the whole process. But it's a lot of time involved, obviously, for a full review. But there's also lots of paddles that come in, and there's a lot of processing of those paddles, especially in my method, right? Because I'm doing all the tests, right?
So, yours is the most ridiculous. We asked you the other day, maybe you can talk about it here. Like, how long does one paddle take on a PB core test?
Yeah, it can, depending on how the cannon is cooperating in the air cannon, it's usually a couple of hours minimum, up to like 3-4 hours for a full paddle. And you're shooting up and down the paddle face. So it's not just one spot on the paddle, and you got to take an average of several shots between a very narrow range around 50 miles an hour. And you got to make sure the environment and climate is the same, for every paddle. So it's a lot. It's a lot, very labor intensive.
And I want people to understand this, at least for John's. Multiply that in a month over 30, maybe even 40 paddles. A paddle may have 3 shapes. There's a lot of releases coming out. So there's a person, even for us, when we have a huge stack of paddles and we just do static weight, balance, twist weight, swing weight, that stack of paddles can take a pretty good amount of time, and we're not doing things like deflection, the cannon, you're doing quite a bit more. So we're not even talking about hitting a paddle yet. And there's hours spent on that.
And do you do all this before you even bring it on court and hit it?
I try to. Sometimes there are exceptions when we need to, we get a paddle in day before a podcast. We definitely want to talk about it on that podcast. We'll kind of throw it on the court before we do all the measurements.
Yeah. And you're still doing the on-court spin test, serve test with the stalker, or no?
Yes, I still am. So I'm duplicate. The whole purpose of the cannon and all these things was to objectify, but also make my work more objective, but also reduce kind of all of that on-court stuff, in terms of spin testing, power testing, pop testing. Now I'm doing it all because I've tripled my workload because it's ridiculous.
I do not envy that you do all those things, John. I absolutely do not envy any of those. But yeah, so that's just intake of paddles.
Uh-huh.
Now, next is hitting the paddle. And I think one of the things that people may not realize is there's very different approaches you can take in how long you hit a paddle, right? I have 2 definitions for us at Pickleball Studio. There is a review and there's a first impression. A first impression could be anything between I hit it for an hour and a half or less, all the way up to, I don't know, let's say 5 hours maybe. That anywhere in that range, I would call that a first impression. And then beyond that, a review, I wouldn't say I've had a set category, but I think my reviews have probably averaged, and I have a much better understanding of this now that I'm tracking games, because trust me, when you start logging games on paddles, I'm now realizing that hours I thought I probably put on a paddle, I was almost certainly inflating them. Because anyone
we
out
went
there,
over this on another pod.
Yeah, if you log your games, it's a whole different level.
Games is different than time.
Yeah, true.
Exactly. And so for me, a review's probably averaged anywhere between 10 and 20 plus hours. The Loco, I'm very positive that was between 25 and 30 hours by the time I finally reviewed that thing.
I feel that time it's been getting bumped up more and more as of recent.
Of how long I hit it?
Yeah.
It depends. I'm trying to not hit it that much because I don't think most reviews need it.
Sure.
But that's kind of my range. I don't know if you have an internal definition or how you've done it before, but
yeah, I've started doing first impressions too, and that's pretty critical. The podcast is kind of the venue where we give our first impressions, and it can be anywhere from one game to several games. And now I'm doing standalone first impression videos, and I want to continue doing those. And I'm, literally my series is called First Hits, and rarely do I do this, but sometimes I'll record myself dinking with whoever and just oh, here's what I'm feeling on this paddle right now. I think there's some value to that. Clearly, it's not my final impressions yet, and I'm not trying to present it as that. And then, then it's scaled up into eventually a full review. But I think you're totally right. Until you log your hours, you're inflating your hours.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah, there's just not enough hours in the day to do it, and it's a lot of wear and tear on the body to to play so much pickleball. I mean, think about, people listening or viewing, like how much do you play pickleball? And is it 4 or 5 times a day for 2 hours a day? Or is some of that drilling? How much is the drilling versus playing breakdown? Imagine doing that and trying to review paddles while you're doing that. And 20 hours is a heck of a lot of hours to
on
play
one paddle.
with a paddle. We're talking like if you're also testing other paddles while you're doing that, what do you think that would take in terms of weeks to total 20 hours on a paddle?
Of actual use. And not like, I played for 2 hours and that's 2 hours on the paddle.
Yeah, exactly. Like it would be a lot. Like, I mean, I've literally ran the math to figure out like, how long is it going to take me to hit 100 games on some of these? And like, if you think about it, like in January, we had 30 paddles come through. Some paddles people want reviews, some you can kind of skip or whatever. And it's like, dude, if you were going to give every paddle 20 to 30 hours, or, even if you go like, 30 I'd say is like pretty fine. But, if you went even a little higher, like, dude, you could be hitting a paddle for 30 hours if you played 2 hours each time you play and you only use that paddle, let's just say. That's minimum 15 sessions, or you're doing more than 2 hours a day. And if you do more than 2 hours a day, that's really hard on the body. Like, I've been doing this for 4 years now, and the times where I go like, which is not often that I go this hard, 2 weeks straight with not a day off, my body is fried. So you could not possibly maintain 2+ hours a day every single day and still have time to do all the other things you need to do to make all the videos.
100%. Yeah.
So like, I think, if anyone's listening and wondering like, oh man, well, why can't paddle reviewers just like crank these out? Like, the paddle came out, give me a review on it. It's like, well, if you want thorough testing, that could take 2 to 3 weeks sometimes. Mm-hmm. And that's just if you hit one paddle. There's 30 other paddles you want to hear about as well,
Yeah. And think about, we're not just playing with them on the court. We're testing them in the back at the office, in the lab. And, everybody's doing swing weight, twist weight, balance point, all that stuff. But yeah, and there's more exhaustive tests beyond that. So a lot of work goes on behind the scenes to make a paddle review.
Well, and then outside of even the on-court testing, the lab testing you do, the statistics and stuff we get on paddles, but just the process of making a video is so much more than I think people realize. Like, obviously you are less of a team than we are when it comes to the filming. Like, right. You have to shoot B-roll and you have to do the editing and, there's
scripting,
the scripting of the A-roll. Like, there's so much more of a process to this. And, for our process, because we like to go a little bit more in depth on the quality, the video quality, I have to completely take time out of my day to separately color grade the footage. That's a whole nother step that goes into it, right? So there's just so much that goes into the production of a video.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And I want to make it clear here, just, as we're talking about this kind of crossed my mind. None of this is a complaint. This is not woe is me, so I have to hit a pickleball paddle. It's not like that. That is not the point. I just see a lot of times where it's like, oh man, like, why this review was a week later, it was 2 weeks late. Like, why can't you just do it quicker? And I think there's very much, when you're doing a review, like a pick 2 out of 3. I think I actually wrote this down here. Let me see if I have it. But basically you can choose between 2 of these 3 things. I don't think you can have all 3 of them unless you had a very big team that I don't think any reviewer has yet. Speed of the review, which is like a review or a first impressions. So do you want to be fast or a little slower? Quality of the review. How much time do you want to spend on editing and shooting the video? You could just turn on a camera with a mid-quality microphone and just record.
Or even informational quality.
Yeah, like that's fine. Nothing wrong with that. And then the last thing would be in-depth information, which is would most likely go into like, how long are you play testing, right? Did you spend 2 hours on it or 15 hours on it? That could result in a different opinion on a paddle if you spend all that time. So it's like, I don't think you can have all 3 of those unless, like, let's say we had a slightly larger team and my only literal job, I did nothing but hit paddles. That's it. Then maybe I could do it because I could spend a lot more time in the gym. So I'm getting stronger, I'm stretching, and I could have more time on the court.
Better time recovering.
Yeah, but it's like, there's phone calls, there's emails, there's taxes, there's all these like
scheduling trips, doing stuff like this.
Yep.
It takes a lot of time.
Yeah. Sometimes you just want to play pickleball because we like pickleball, and not everything needs to be work, right? Yeah. Sometimes you just want to go drill and have fun with a buddy. Yeah. And so I think with all of that, it's like, that's why it's a bit of a slower process.
There's another really important thing, I think, in terms of internalizing our thoughts on a paddle, and that is not just hours or games, but how far those are spread out over days. And I'll go back to my drumming days to illustrate this. I used to try to learn these really complex drumming parts, and I would grind all day, 4 hours, 5 hours, and I would hit a plateau, and I just couldn't get beyond that plateau. If I just gave it up, went to bed, woke up in the morning, sat down on the drum set, I would hit that drum part perfectly. And you learn step by step doing that day by day, but something about the brain needs rest in between sessions. So it's not like you can go to even if you were like Superman physically, you could tolerate 6-8 hours on a chord a day. You're not going to internalize the intricacies of a paddle as well as spreading those 6-8 hours over days or even 2 weeks. A lot of times it's not until week 2, even if I'm playing a paddle an hour a day for 3 days a week, 3 hours. Week 2, I'm starting to pick up on some things that I just didn't know at the paddle in week 1. Even if I would have played 20 hours in week 1, you know what I mean? So I think spreading those hours out and kind of sleeping on it and, and that's another reason why it's going to take a couple of weeks to do like a full review of paddles. And I understand that the value of getting information quick. And, I think paddle reviewers, there are plenty that do that, you know, and I'm starting to do it a little more, but just be sure to be accurate with your hours as a paddle reviewer. Like, don't mislead people to say, I've got 100 hours on this paddle, or at least log them before they make that claim. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like I think as just when I think, and this is why I've made, and maybe I haven't made it public enough information. Like now that I'm saying this, like first impressions is exactly what I said, right? Like it's probably less than 5 hours, and a full review means like probably more than 10 hours. And, that's why those two like exist as two different formats on my channel. So, like, hey, this is not the final impression. Things might change. I haven't weighted the paddle. Sometimes I haven't even put an overgrip on the paddle yet. It's literally like out of the box and I'm just running with it to get information out quicker. So I think it's one of those things where you just want to make sure the consumer is getting the most accurate information and they know what they're getting. So anyone watching me, if you ever see a first impression, that's what it is. It's literally a first impression.
Yeah. But to reinforce, like, again, I think we can all agree, we all love what we do. This is not complaining. This is just to give better insight of our process and explain why things take so long. Yeah. Like, yeah, we all love what we do.
Every time we all get together, we're like, can you not believe our lifestyle? How amazing is this?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, right.
100%.
Especially for you. I mean, obviously, we've all had big changes in our lives, but you, I feel like, out of everyone, has probably had the most 50s. Drastic change.
My 50s, yeah, it's crazy.
But it's awesome. Like, it's really cool that we all get to do this.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. I guess I wrote this all down in here, and I guess I kind of skipped over this. I broke down some math last night. So last year, I tracked every day that I played pickleball. Whether that was drilling for 30 minutes, like if I was on a court, I logged whether it was drilling in games. And so I had roughly like 269 days last year that I played pickleball. And that was even when my back was messed up for the first half of the year, where I was able to play substantially less. And so if you think about it, if each of those sessions was 2 hours each, which I know they weren't all, some of those were probably 30 or less, hour less, whatever, right? So that'd be 538 hours if I'm assuming they were all 2 hours, which they weren't, divided by 20 or 30, because if you were assuming that was the hours you put on a paddle, like you want 20 to 30 hours for a review, that would mean 17 to 27 reviews in a year. And that doesn't even factor in hitting all of the other paddles that you, for the podcast,
right? And
that you just want like a quick take on. Maybe you're never fully going to review it. Like if you factor in all of those, and then just if you think about some of those days are just days that I played with my main because I just wanted to play pickleball. Like it's hard to, cover 100 paddle reviews.
That's less paddles than we got in a month.
Yeah, that's less paddles than we got in a month, and we're talking about a year, Right. So I guess I say all that just to give a little bit more context. But I don't know. I guess we could maybe wrap it up with like why do you do it the way you do it?
Go ahead. I mean, it's just, that's the way I've developed. It's the way I wanted to do it, and that's where my curiosity took me. Like I love kind of the experimental method and testing things, and I have a background in analyzing stone tools, so a lot of that transferred pretty well into paddles. Just in terms of the statistics and how to manage an experimental component of, anything. So that was a ton of fun for me. Scratches an itch. And, I think there's an appetite for it out there. A lot of people seemingly enjoy that kind of information on paddles. So it was just me kind of following my own path. And I think it's cool how we've all, kind of done our own thing and found our own micro niche within paddles,
No one's going to touch your niche, John. I'm just as a reviewer, you are safe in your niche. No one is putting a cannon in their basement.
It's funny. When I was talking about like the general public earlier and how they just want to buy something, spend a little more for peace of mind. I can just imagine them being like, I want to buy a paddle. And they stumble on one of my reviews and there's like charts and statistics and Z-scores and standard deviations. They're like, screw this. I'm going to go buy a Joola.
Yeah, 100%. They're like, what does this even mean? Like, one of the things that always makes me laugh about your videos a little bit, and this is why I personally I never went into the whole serve, pop and power. Like, I've done some serve speed tests when I feel like it's a really relevant talking point, but I don't do like pop. And my whole thing is that I just don't, for me, I don't think it's necessary entirely to communicate to the general consumer to get them to understand what they need to know about purchasing this paddle. And also, like, sometimes I feel like it would just be really overwhelming, right? Like, if you're kind of new and you're looking at paddles, like, let's say you hear us talk about the Sparse P1 and you pull up like a John review and he's like, and none of this is bad, by the way, I just want to make this clear. I'm not saying this is a negative. The things you're doing I think are extremely important for the sport. But like, I feel like a lot of times when I do my reviews, like, my idea is to either speak mostly layman's terms or just make it very easy to digest. And I'm like, people still don't understand swing weight. So I can only imagine when John busts out, like, here's the Z-score for this paddle. People are like, what the heck is a Z-score, bro?
For sure.
But I think you also have some of the most objective data in pickleball that's like really hard to dispute. So like,
I'm consistently surprised that people want to see it, and so far it's been fine. There's a niche that it does enjoy the deep dive, but it's not one of these days I'm just going to get too deep and people are going to be like, all right.
Do you ever think that there are times where it's like, the longer you go, you need to explain what these things are again for new audience coming in?
Exactly. Because there's kind of this fallacy I feel like I get for sure, where I feel like I have a core group of people that watch me and they're learning as I learn and they're educated, but I'm not accounting for the people just coming in, who maybe are a beginner pickleball or don't know anything about paddles. And that kind of blows my mind because I'm like, well, how do I level this in different ways so that the beginner can come in and kind of understand it? And it also, like, I don't want to abandon the core viewers who have been with me the whole time, you know, obviously I never will, but it's really hard to kind of scale at that level.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, when you got 3 hours on a cannon just to intake one paddle, it's hard to. That's hard to. John's gonna. How long till you get a second cannon? That's what I want to know.
I think he's gonna need a warehouse at that point.
Look, I'm just saying, I wouldn't put it past John to eventually be doing something like that. It would be crazy. But yeah, no, I think it's good that there's all these different pockets, and everyone, no matter what, you're gonna get the information you need in pickleball. There are people who do paddle reviews faster and get the information out quicker. I think that's great. People can, like, if you want to learn about a paddle fast, right? Like, if everyone was as slow as you and I, that would be a net negative for paddle reviews as a whole, right? Like, it wouldn't.
I think there's positives and negatives to both.
It's
right?
trade-offs.
Yeah, there's trade-offs, right? Like, we take a little bit longer to get reviews and videos out, but I think we're trying to get as accurate and as quality data and information as we can. And I think for people putting it out really quick, just need to be accurate and honest on how much time is actually being spent on these paddles.
Yeah.
And our podcasts are a venue for the more preliminary information as well. So
for sure,
you can get both, but yeah, we don't put out, besides the standalone videos on first impressions, we don't put out a lot of standalone videos that provide not much evidence, about a paddle.
Right. Totally. So yeah, that's a little bit of insight into that. And I feel like that, honestly, there's probably like other dozen micro things that we, missed. I mean, there's stuff like this that happens with paddle reviews too. Actually, this is one I'm glad I just remembered this. Sometimes what people don't realize is, like, at least with us, we only talk about production models. I feel like everyone got burned with the Ripple, and that changed everyone's tune about, like, you know what? In the past, it was like everyone, when they said, hey, this is pretty much final, you're like, yeah, this is final. Then the Ripple came along, and that kind of changed everyone's impression of what a pre-production and a production paddle was. So like I tell companies all the time now, send me what you're going to from the batch that you're shipping the consumer. I don't want to play this game of give me something else and then I have to retest it. Like I feel like it can cause a lot of problems. And sometimes you get one thing and then a company makes a small change to a paddle and you're like, dude, I was just about to finish my review and now you're telling me you added like a carbon fiber reinforcement, which that's a whole other thing about the paddle should need to be recertified, but that also doesn't happen a lot. I'm not even going to get into that. But then you're like, well, shoot, I have to redo like 2 weeks of work because you made a change that may or may not matter. But if it does matter, the consumer might go, dude, your whole review is wrong.
Right.
You know? And I'm not willing to, I don't want to be wrong.
Yeah.
It only takes touching the stove once. You know, the Ripple burned us all and we don't want to touch it again.
We all got rippled.
Yeah.
But to me, it's like crystal clear the boundary because I do a lot of prototype testing for some prototype testing for certain brands. So I'm never going to be like, hey, guess what I found on my Q-Core cannon for this prototype of this. Like, no, it's just like, no, that's off limits. So for me, I'm not going to talk about a paddle, including when the J6 CR was in pre-order mode for 3 months, was it? Before we got production models. Yeah, like none of us covered that because that's not what we do.
Yeah, actually, there was a lot of people who were like, all right, you know, like why don't like Chris or John talk about like the J6 CR? And it's because we were told very clearly like that we don't have a production model yet. You had like in December, you had other units.
I had like 5 prototypes that I was actively testing up until, they launched the production model. And I'm not going to talk about the prototypes I'm hitting, It
sounds like,
wacky.
so prototype 1 feels like this, prototype 2 feels like this, and everyone's
and
like,
they were very different, yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, that's just a little bit more insight on that came to my mind. But I want to talk about some RPM stuff now. RPM as in like, not the brand, but spin on the ball. That is a little confusing. I realized as I was coming out of my mouth, I was like, so RPM versus like real world a little bit. So I want to just get your current thoughts on like where the spin test is, because I've had multiple brands tell me, hey, look, we have rough versions, we have smooth versions. They get the same spin on the spin test. I have done spin tests as a human with the Stalker 3S, and I've had smooth paddles, they get high RPM, and I've had very rough paddles, they get the same high RPM. Like there's no difference in terms of the baseline serve test. But I do think that there is a difference, and the texture matters at the kitchen, because we hit so many different shots. We hit slow touch shots at the kitchen, you hit big baseline stuff, and the ball interacts very differently with the paddle on all those different shots. And so I guess I'm just curious about, I know you're switching over to that test, and no one's really ever tried to do like a dink RPM speed test. I've actually wanted to test this, and I just keep forgetting. But like, what do you think about the cannon and how that interacts for RPM? Do you feel like it tells the whole picture? Is it only a half picture? What's kind of your thought on where that sits right now?
Yeah. So first of all, I think all of us reviewers who have been doing spin testing with our arm for years have gotten very good at it in terms of getting consistent results with our arm.
Yeah.
There's going to be some margin of error in there for sure. But I wanted to get more objective data because I got the Canon, I got the high-speed camera. Might as well put it to use. And it's been really interesting, like the results. And it's been very preliminary because I just started on it basically because my camera died twice, right? I have some kind of power surge in my basement that fried 2 of these high-speed cameras. So got a new one. I'm going to go back and continue doing this work. But yeah, first of all, there's a discrepancy in terms of overall spin. So I wanted to get like max spin on the paddles that kind of matched what my arm was doing on the top spin serves that I was gathering data for. But I was never able to get quite as much with the Canon as I am with my arm. I think it's just swing mechanics. You're swinging the paddle through the ball, and there's
The collision's just different.
The collision's different, right? But I experimented. So I was experimenting with speed and paddle angle, and I found that at 40 degrees plus, so ball's coming this way, paddle's clamped this way, going up in degrees from 0 to 30 to 45. Anything above 40, most paddles are about the same on the spin test, including like the wooden paddle with no grit or the grittiest peel ply. And it's because the ball is just, it's not spinning it very much, and all paddles kind of perform the same. And what I'm finding is that spin, high spin above like 2000 RPM is mostly related to a very a very low angle and no slide of the ball. When the ball slides across the face, you lose all the spin, right? So that's the key there. And that's why a high angle is producing mostly similar spin, because the ball is not sliding and it's not low enough to allow it to generate a lot of RPM. So when you lower the angle, the sweet spot was 30 degrees. That's where I was seeing the highest spinning paddles spin at the highest spin, 2300 RPM, even with the Canon. And you get everything down to 1,000 RPM at that.
Sure.
For paddles that don't have a lot of surface texture or friction, and the balls are sliding across the face. So there's all that. But like I said, the Canon data is a little lower than my arm. And on average, I'm seeing about a 200 to 300 RPM difference in what I can get with my arm versus what I can get with the Canon. But interestingly, it's not a exact, as far as I can tell, I'm still collecting data on this. It's not an exact linear relationship. So at like the 2300 range, it's very close to what I can get with my arm. But down in like the 2000 to 1600 RPM range, there's a pretty big discrepancy, like 200 to 300 RPM with what I can get to with my arm. So I want to keep doing the paddles and figure that out. Like, why is that happening? And then I think it tightens up again at the super low spinning paddles.
Sure.
So I also wanted to test with the Canon the low speed stuff, right? Like, can I replicate what's happening at the kitchen? You know, because I think that's really important. So I've landed on like 30 to 40 miles per hour inbound to do that kitchen spin, and I'm doing both. So 60 miles an hour for the max spin, 30 to 40 miles an hour for the kitchen spin. It is less RPM, but I wanted to see, like, okay, are grittier paddles actually generating more spin at lower speeds relative to their max RPM? Verdict's out on that. I am seeing some trends. Very interesting and counterintuitive. One of the ones that got the closest spin in terms of the 60 mile an hour inbound and the 30 mile an hour inbound was the Pickle vintage wooden paddle. They were almost exactly the same. I've got it here. They got 1252 RPM at 60 miles an hour and 1218 RPM at 40 miles an hour.
Oh.
Normally it's a drop of like a couple hundred RPM at lower speeds. So I was like, what in the heck? Like, that one definitely doesn't get good kitchen spin, but I think it's a friction thing. It has no grit. It's a glossy surface. And when you're brushing up on the ball at the kitchen, it's not sliding as much if the paddle speed is lower. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's almost like the nanotech surface at that point. You're just kind of gripping the ball. So it actually might generate pretty decent kitchen spin, the wooden paddle. I need to test that.
Sure.
But anyhow, so that's where I am with this. I need to play around more with angles and inbound speeds for the replication of kitchen spin before I'm comfortable with those results, because I'm not seeing as much patterning as I would expect with, like you said, the grittier the surface, something that's way over the legal limits for USAP, but within UPAA limits, the more kind of grab it's going to get at the kitchen and the more shape you're going to get in the ball with topspin dinks and that sort of thing. But I'm not really seeing that flesh out in the data yet. But I just need to mess around with angles and bounce speeds.
I will say, with the serve spin tests that we all do, you mentioned at the very beginning of this topic, we've had smooth paddles that get really good spin. We've had really gritty paddles that get really good spin. But I cannot remember the last time we had a really gritty paddle not get good spin. But we have had smooth paddles not get very good spin.
Oh, 100%.
So
yeah.
I think there's a bigger correlation with grit to spin than, as a lot of people like to throw around the word, dwell time. I
100%.
think that word is just so misused in the industry right now, and not a lot of people actually have a good grasp of what that word means.
100%. Can I talk about that for
absolutely.
a second?
Please get into it, because I had a really good in-depth conversation about this with Jace from Selkirk. Obviously, they have a high-speed camera and a ball cannon. We went full nerd out on dwell time and all this stuff, and I think people actually have it kind of backwards. Yeah. So get into it.
Yeah. And it's a simple topic. It's a simple kind of myth-busting issue, but I don't think I've eloquently talked about it yet in a way that is that really captures what's going on. So I've been testing this with the high speed camera and the ball cannon, and we do have it backwards. Like dwell time, a lot of people think, okay, dwell time is like trampoline effect, and it's with the new Gen 3 and Gen 4 style paddles. It's more powerful. You know, it catches and then springs the ball back, and it's associated with power. But I'm finding the opposite with the ball cannon, where and if we're speaking about dwell time strictly in the sense of how long does the ball
sit on the face of
the paddle, the lowest power paddles have the ball sits on the face longer because they're not springing the ball off as quickly, and
also lower grit.
And lower grit, yeah. So when you shoot the ball at a paddle and it's completely flat face, so it's not angled at all, then spin is out of the equation. But yeah, most of the time when you're hitting a ball on the court, you're brushing up on the ball with the closed face or slicing with an open face, and that slide across a low friction paddle is going to enhance dwell time. So it's doing two things. Dwell time is doing two things that people don't think it's doing and aren't typically wanted in a paddle.
It's actually having a negative association.
Yeah, so it's associated with low power paddles and low spinning paddles.
Yep.
So dwell time, you heard it here first on Pickleball Studio.
This is also going on John Q, just so we know. Let's make that clear.
Yeah. So if you like a high dwell time paddle, you like low spin and low power. Not necessarily, so low spin, nobody likes. Low power, maybe you like a control paddle. But yeah, so that's one thing. But pocketing is something else entirely. So
yes.
That can actually enhance spin the more the paddle pockets the ball. But what you typically see is those paddles that pocket the ball actually do get more firepower, and the ball is off the face in less than 2 milliseconds.
Yep.
Right? And it's up to like almost 3 milliseconds with the biggest dwell time paddles, like wooden paddles and low power paddles.
Right.
Regardless, it's not much of a difference. So we're talking milliseconds here, but yeah, the ones with the biggest pocketing, they catch the ball, release it in under 2 milliseconds, and that does enhance spin. But I don't think it does as much as people think it does. I think
totally agree.
Yeah, I think that 90% of spin is generated with friction on the face of the paddle, and that can be, a smooth face paddle that has friction like Nanotech, or gritty paddles, that generate that friction.
Actually digging into the ball.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Let me say one thing quick. The one reason that I have some things I disagree with and I want to get into a little bit, but the one thing I really agree with about like why maybe dwell time in some ways has been this like myth in pickleball, but like, it helps the paddle get way more spin. If you look at, the Gen 3 is when like dwell became the big word, right? Like the Joola Gen 3. And then ever since then, dwell for every paddle has been this like big talking point. But you know what hasn't really changed despite allegedly dwell getting way better in pickleball? Spin. Like at least in all the tests that we do for serve tests, which is where you would see dwell because you're hitting the ball like as hard as you can basically and trying to make it sink into the face. If I took whatever people would define as the most dwelly paddle on the market, and then I took another one that's not really that dwelly but has like good grit, they're almost certainly going to be, if they're brand new, within like very similar RPMs of each other. We didn't see RPMs go up like 400 RPM overnight when suddenly we had paddles with like good dwell time. Mm-hmm. It's almost always been associated with the paddle having like great grit.
Right.
But a lot of people, like, again, referencing back to my conversation with Jace, a lot of people would say that the boomstick has crazy dwell. I hear that all the time.
I would never say that, but
I mean, I hear that constantly from people. And again, I think that word is thrown around when a lot of people don't really know what it means realistically.
Yeah.
But one interesting thing, and I'm gonna struggle to exact quote here. I think you were there for part of this conversation. How Jace was saying, I think what he was saying is like in compliance and out of compliance with how the face actually pockets and flexes. With the boomstick, the ball is actually off the face while the paddle is still flexed and pocketed. Where a lot of paddles that fail, like PB Core or testing off the ball cannon, is when it's actually in like the same essentially frequency of launching the ball, right?
Yeah, there are two phases of pocketing, so the paddle sinks in and the paddle springs back, And like you said, if the vibration nodes are timed so that vibration actually pushes the ball off, the ball is launched off as it's popping back out, then yeah, that could certainly lead to more fire.
The way I like to describe it is imagine jumping on a trampoline. And if you jump and keep your legs stiff, obviously the trampoline is completely launching you. But if you jump and then before it has launched you up, you pull your legs up, you're not going to go as far.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So that's the best way I've been able to describe it.
Right.
So the thing I want to pick your brain about, the part that I say I disagree, not because I have an answer, but more a thing that I think about and I wonder where it stacks up, because I feel like there's has to be a difference between, firing a ball flat at a paddle where it's like clamped and we're just watching the ball hit and fire off versus like the collision of an inbound 40-mile-an-hour ball and someone swinging it, I'm just going to make up a number here, 60 miles an hour, because I did look a little bit at some of the tests you've done. And then when Isaac and I did our slow-mo test and I looked at just the difference in how that collision looks. Mm-hmm. And on a lot of yours, it seems like the ball is like usually off most of the paddles pretty fast. And then, they maybe wiggle a little bit or vibrate. And there were quite a few where when Isaac was like swinging, which was on a static ball, like we threw it up and he swung, it wasn't an inbound ball. So this might even change more, is a lot of times the paddle actually looked like it was very briefly pushing the ball before it came off. So I just wonder if there's like a larger amount of things going on versus like just one test in a lab, but maybe you have some thoughts on like all of that,
No, I think that's a really valid point. It also gets into PB core, how much does the paddle head speed and affect the ball in ways that PB core isn't capturing because we're shooting at a stationary paddle, even though it's allowed to spin out, is the paddle actually capturing the ball and the ball's on the face even a millisecond longer because you're swinging it? And I remember seeing your old high-speed videos and Isaac was swinging the bread and butter. Which one was it?
That was probably the whatever the original one was. Why can't I think of the filth?
Filth, yeah, it was the filth. And I remember thinking like, God, that ball seems like it should be coming off so much faster because you were like swinging hard and it's like 20,000 frames per second. Collision, and the ball is like on the paddle for just a split second, and then it's launched off, but it's barely gaining any speed off the paddle face. You know what I mean? The paddle's swinging almost as fast as the ball coming off the paddle. So I was like, I guess the pickleball is not a tennis ball. But yeah, that's going to change things, I would imagine. But a lot of things I've tested with the Canon are very counterintuitive, like the fact that you can shoot a paddle that's not even clamped, just propped on its handle on the table, and it goes flying across the room after you shoot it, but it's still returning the same outbound velocity of the ball as a clamped paddle that's clamped stiff.
So hang on. Then my question would be, because if we're going to translate this to, the people in the audience who are maybe at this point losing the conversation a little bit, they're... In theory, what that would mean is if someone hits an overhead at me and I am resetting the ball, whether I grip that paddle like I'm squeezing it like the paddle is going to explode in my hand, or I loosen it to I am holding a baby bird in my hand, in theory, it should return the same exact energy.
Exactly.
But then
So many questions.
But then in real world, that's not actually what happens.
Well,
maybe it is, but clearly it's not what's coached.
Something's different.
So something's absolutely different because you can soften your hands on a grip and it's absolutely helps with control as opposed to squeezing the crap out of a handle and typically you're going to pop the ball up. The question is, when you're squeezing the crap out of the handle, are you also jerking, making movements that you're not when you're loose? Just loose, right? So
sure.
That could explain it. And our initial data with the Canons isn't definitive data also. We're actually looking into right now with Keith and Brian Fitzpatrick, the guys that have been helping me, and the brain trust and all of this. Looking at, does the clamp weight matter? Maybe using a clamp, even though it spins out and even though our tests have shown that doesn't matter how tightly it's clamped, but the calculation of PB core includes both the paddle and the swing weight of the paddle and the swing weight of the clamp, right? So if you're combining those swing weights together and putting that into the formula, then you think a big 10-pound clamp is going to make it behave differently than a really lightweight clamp, right? So maybe that's some of the reasons we're seeing discrepancies in PB core between USAP and what we think, paddles should play with. I don't know. But all of that is just like this has all been a super fun experiment and very counterintuitive sometimes, which I find extremely fascinating. But there's also, I love the fact that we're doing this independently, and maybe we eventually are going to be able to help, USAP or whoever.
The sport's still so new and so young. Like we just have like so many questions and so many things to test. And that's why it's great to have you doing a lot of this. But basically what I'm understanding is the next thing you need is a robot arm that you can program to swing at the exact time when the cannon shoots.
That's not too much to ask, right?
Yeah. No.
I'm just saying it right now. Within the next, you heard it here first on Pickleball Studio. Within the next 5 years, John will have done or contributed something to pickleball within testing, works for something, or has helped a governing body. I'm just saying right now it's going to happen. You've done too many things for it to not happen. Not to say that, you're just like definitively the smartest person in all of pickleball and none of the engineers matter. And I don't think you
Definitely
think
not.
that.
No, not at all.
But I think it's I'm glad we have people like you who like doing this stuff, because this is certainly not for me. This is where I just want to go hit the ball. John's like, I don't even need to hit the thing. I just want to shoot balls out of a cannon at it. But no, I'm really glad you like doing this, because I think what you offer is very valuable. I think it is helping move the industry forward. I think it can help keep paddles honest in a lot of different ways. Like it's a very good thing, because clearly no one else is willing to do this.
Yeah. What are we, like an hour and a half in? You're like, man, why do I invite John on my podcast?
no
just
way.
go down the rabbit
This
hole.
has been such a great, refreshing conversation. Like these are conversations I love to have, but this isn't what we do on our podcast. So
yeah,
it's like he said, I'm more like, I love talking about this stuff and learning about it.
Yeah.
But not stuff I like to do day to day. So it's
exactly.
Great to have you doing this in the sport.
In small doses.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it's all of the like data and science behind different things. I mean, even you just explaining shooting the ball standing stationary versus clamped is wild to me, because again, I think it's just very interesting the things that people perceive in the real world as happening versus maybe that's not actually happening, or like you said, maybe there's the other variable of when you're tight, you do like a sudden movement that is contributing to why the paddle feels poppier, versus when you're loose, maybe you don't do that. Like it's all very interesting to like understand more the logic of what is or is not happening.
Yeah.
And I think the interesting thing is, and unfortunate for you, there's so many variables in the real world that it's like good luck accounting for everything, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm glad we got someone who likes doing it. That's great. The next thing I kind of want to go on, which was, involves the cannon again. Does the cannon have a name?
No.
I feel like the cannon
Needs a name.
Come
man.
on, you can't just. This is like not naming your firstborn child. This is crazy. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about was like grit degradation. This has been, the hot topic as of, I would say, the last month. Everyone has their own different little ways of doing it. Braden's doing like a Tabor abrasion test where it's spinning a disc on the paddle and then he's measuring surface roughness. You are taking your cannon, firing 100 shots, measuring the RPM at the start, and then measuring at the end, and you're doing it with a 70 miles an hour?
Yeah.
Right? So after 100 shots, you remeasure the RPM to see how it dropped. Since you have a lot of controlled variables there, it's with a cannon, same speed, paddle in the same spot, yada, yada, yada. Mine is like a real world test where I'm playing the paddle up to 100 games. So it's more what the paddle would experience in the real world, but it's slow. It's not going to be the same result every time because there's different variables. Was the court, did it have a lot of debris? Did it not have a lot of debris? There's just different variables. I'm swinging at different speeds on different days. Maybe there's a game where I'm dinking more. Maybe there's a day where I'm driving more. There's just more variables. But everyone's doing their own different thing, and it's been very interesting to see the different results and how everything stacks up against each other. But I guess I just wanted to pick your brain on it, why you landed on the way you did it, and then maybe just talk back and forth amongst all of these, because I think everyone's been very curious. Like, oh, well, John got this result, Braden got this, Chris got this. Which one is actually better?
Right.
And just kind of discuss some of this.
I think it's awesome that we're all doing it differently, coming at it with our own methodologies, because we're going to get more useful information that way. I love it that Braden's doing a similar thing to the Tabor abrasion test, because he's going to keep companies honest, because they're doing Tabor abrasion tests. And if they say that their grit lasts 8 times longer than raw carbon fiber, he can actually test that. And if it gets twice as long, then they're going to look bad, right?
Yeah.
So it's great that he's doing that. The reason mine developed the way it did is because I have all the stuff there. So the Canon, high-speed camera, why not? Why not do it that way?
And you're also smart and you don't want to just cook your arm playing so much pickleball, unlike me.
but mine, I'd say, is, closer to real world than Braden's. Braden's is more controlled, and he's using sandpaper but mine is using a ball, and it's very controlled, but probably not as controlled as Braden. Not that it's bad, or it's just different, right? And the ball is, and the reason why I landed on 100 shots at 70 miles an hour is because I did that with a raw carbon fiber paddle, brand new one, and it lost 350 RPM, more or less. There's a noticeable difference to the touch and the smoothness of where the balls were hitting versus the fresh grit outside of that area. And I feel like 350 RPM is when I really feel the difference in a paddle.
And when you did that, was that 350 RPM measured by a slow-mo camera, or was that 350 RPM in the human test?
Slow-mo camera.
Okay.
So I had to clamp the paddle, measured its RPM with the high-speed camera and the Canon, left that paddle clamp there, shot it 100 times, 70 miles an hour, and then I retested the RPM. It's a 50 mile an hour inbound to test RPM, and it lost 350 RPM.
Got it.
Yeah.
I would be curious to know, do you feel like that 350 RPM on the Canon translates the same to as the human test, or do you think there's maybe a little difference there?
Well, yeah, that's open to question too, right? Because like I said, it's not exactly a linear relationship with my arm versus the Canon, and this came in at 2100 new, so pretty high. So it's going to be closer than something falling in the 1700 range to my arm. So I feel pretty confident that that's more or less, Judging also from the touch, it feels like a paddle that's been worn down.
Sure.
That you're not going to want to play with much anymore. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So that's kind of the sweet spot where I wanted to do it. That's the method I'm using. And again, my high-speed camera broke twice, so I did get enough information to put up the 11624 Power 2 review, showing that was it at least twice as durable as raw carbon fiber. But yeah, and then we got yours, which is all real world. You're doing it the hard way. You're logging your hours. It's not accelerated, and I think that's really valuable too. Right?
Yeah.
So
because there's a lot of variables when it comes to real world versus lab testing, the taper abrasion,
right?
Because with the taper abrasion test, and I'm not saying that anyone is better than the other, right? Like you said, it's great that we're all doing it differently. It's the same exact abrasive surface always. Yours, it's always the ball hitting the paddle. Real world, the ball can be picking up aggregate off the court. There's other variables hitting the paddle, so every single one is going to be different. I also think certain grit textures, now that we're seeing new ones, can kind of maybe game certain systems differently, right? That's why we're all getting a lot of different numbers.
Yeah, for sure. But I think between the three of us, people are going to gain a good understanding of how durable the grit is. And I think one or both of you said on your last podcast, or maybe we were just talking the other day, I can't remember, but so far the signs are that these more durable grits are actually more durable. And we're going to find out which ones in the end are the most durable, or or which group of them are more durable than others. So it's great. We're all independently testing this, and even though it might seem confusing to people looking or viewing, hey, what John says, it's twice as durable, but Braden's test showed it was several times that, and then we're going to find out from you, what your arm revealed after logged hours, which I think is great.
And what I think is especially good about this is obviously mine is extremely slow. I mean, I think when I've done the math, looking at the games I've logged, it ends up being probably somewhere between 15, maybe up to 30 hours, but probably 15 to 25 hours on average for each paddle. And so, it's very slow. I've been doing this testing since October, November last year, and I still am not done with all of the current grit. So you can only imagine by the end of this year how my arm is going to feel playing all of these paddles. It's going to be a little ridiculous. But the nice thing is Braden's the fastest to get information out. Yours is the second fastest, and then mine is the slowest. I'm glad not everyone is just doing a real world test, because consumers wouldn't get any information for a very long time.
Yeah, for sure.
So from that standpoint, I think it's good. I definitely I'm glad I'm doing it the way I'm doing it, just because I feel like it's probably for example, in a lab test, I feel like there's a lot of things in labs that can just interact differently than what you see in the real world, right? Like I feel like when you're doing a Tabor abrasion test, you're taking a material and just spinning it in a direction, depending on what you're measuring for, right? Are you only measuring for surface roughness? Are you actually measuring RPMs off of that? And that's like what I've been happy with for mine is marrying surface roughness plus RPM, because it's like, okay, you can kind of see some patterns, right? If surface roughness always goes down and RPMs always go down, you're like, okay, well, pretty clear correlation there. Right. And if you see surface roughness doesn't go down, RPM doesn't go down, you're like, okay, well, that's cool. So far, thankfully, I haven't really seen surface roughness go down, RPM stay the same, so that's a good sign. But I just think like something like a basically sandpaper disc spinning in one spot, and this isn't to rag on Braden's, this is more just like, because that's what the labs have been doing, right? We saw 6-0 do that. We saw Selkirk do that with theirs. I just always wonder, like, okay, the material you're spinning on it, how equivalent is that to what we're going to experience on the pickleball court?
Right.
And that's why I'm always like, if we believed that the lab tests were the most accurate, well, then why don't we just believe Infinigrit and Diamond Tough are just definitively the most durable grit on the market? They've claimed, 3 or more times for each of them. Mm-hmm. Well, we wouldn't need to do any of our testing if we just believed it and it was perfect lab testing.
Right.
Because we've seen what they've done. It's expensive equipment. That's way more expensive than what you or I can afford.
Yeah, for sure. I think with Braden's equipment, it'd be fun to do a head-to-head comparison. So instead of using sandpaper disc, cut out a circle of Infinigrit. Like cut a circle out of the paddle and put it on Diamond Tough grit and have them braid each other.
Go against each other.
Yeah, and to get a beginning stair measurement and an end stair measurement. And then
the true paddle battle against each other.
Yeah, it's like a cage match. You're just pitting them against each other.
Dude, I've seen people do that with like, I don't know if you've seen these videos on social media. People take power drills and connect them to like the same, bar.
No,
and
I've
then
seen that.
Turn them on and they claim which one dies first.
Nice. Yeah.
That's pretty funny. So yeah, I think it's good. It's good to have different ways, different methodologies, and we'll kind of over time have more conclusive data. I think it's also important for people to realize that right now, everything's still like very early signs, right? I don't think anyone is sitting here trying to claim like, oh, no matter what, over time, like it's like never going to wear out or it's always going to be guaranteed to know this. Like for me, man, I don't know if I'm going to get 200-300 games on some of these paddles. Like maybe the P1, because it's my main right now, I'll get a lot more on it. But I promise you, almost certainly I'm not getting 300 and 400 games on every long-lasting grit that comes out. I mean, I would spend the rest of this year playing only those paddles.
Yeah. A commenter brought this up. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name, but I think it was a very valid point. And he's like, all right, it's kind of like you should extend your test on the paddles until they lose 350 RPM.
Sure.
It's kind of like how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a great idea because it may not be a linear thing. Like maybe some of these new grits, they have a hard outer shell, but once you break through that, then it just loses stuff at a much higher rate, right?
Yeah.
So it does great, and then it just drops off the cliff. So
or maybe it's like breaks initially, loses some spin, and then just stays level.
Yeah, the opposite, right?
Yeah. So it'll be very interesting to see what it all is. I think what people should be happy about is companies are trying to do this. This is probably one of the last big problems people have complained about in pickleball.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, we've all seen it, right? Once you start losing spin on especially high power paddles, you feel it.
Yeah.
On those high power paddles, right? I mean, I've done spin tests before on like, some of these smoother paddles, and sometimes it takes me some calibration just to get the dang ball over the net because I'm like, I have no spin to grab and pick this thing up over the net. It's just like going flat into the net.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm glad it's being worked on. We'll see who the real winner is by the end of the year.
Right.
But all right, let's see what we got here next. Okay, actually, I just had a random question for you. This just came to when I saw you testing eyewear. Uh-huh. So what made you interested in testing eyewear when a lot of the eyewear will like usually have some form of certification? And I was doing this research a while ago, so I'm not current, but like all the different standards, like there's like Z87 and Z87 Plus or whatever, ANSI, like there's all these different ones. And a lot of times the eyewear will have that rating on it already. What made you want to do it with yours when like a rating already exists for it?
Right. And yeah, I put this disclaimer on the video too. It was just a podcast. I haven't published a video, and this is all preliminary stuff. And mostly it was just like, what does it look like to hit a pair of glasses with a ballistic head on a high-speed camera?
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
That's going to look cool. But I also was like, oh, I can kind of test this, And so I wanted to test it. And the whole reasoning behind it is people are interested, and it's an independent way to kind of verify some of the claims.
Sure.
In the same way I'm doing Q-Core.
Yeah.
The ballistic gel head experiment was far less controlled than the Q-Core stuff, right? And then people brought up a good point. They're like, all right, your ballistic gel is very soft. The head was very soft. Doesn't have an internal bone structure, so maybe it's probably going to behave differently with bone structure. So I ordered one of the same ones you see on all these sword shows.
I've been wanting to buy one of those for so long.
It's got the blood and the brains in it, but it actually has a human skull, not a real human skull, but
something that mimics it
underneath the gel, right? So I'm going to redo the experiment, and yeah. But
look,
I think
he's after the Q certification for glasses. Okay, he's taking over paddle testing certification. Now eyewear Q certification is coming next. Okay,
my prediction is in less than 10 years we'll have a Q certification of some kind. Whether it's paddles, eyewear, who knows? It could be anything. But yeah, I was just curious. Clearly you just love testing lots of stuff. Like you're just interested and passionate about it. But I was just like, man, that's just like one more thing to add to John's plate.
Just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
John's just having fun over there.
That's right.
Yeah.
High-speed cameras, Canons, you can't go wrong, man.
A lot of fun toys.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we get into, we had some questions and answers for you that we got from Instagram. I had one other thing that I wanted to pick your brain about. So when I was more into data stuff, kind of when I started the RPM thing and then swing weight, or I'm not claiming I started swing weight or that, but like when I was getting more into that type of data, swing weight, twist weight, early on, before I like fully understood, I was always very hesitant to start talking about it because I was like, well, I don't want to spread any misinformation or a misunderstanding and then have to correct it later. And, the whole market is now confused. And when you're doing your stuff with the Canon, like you're obviously collecting all of this interesting data, stuff about like dwell time. Do you ever is there an amount of tests you want to run before you start talking about something? Or do you ever worry like, oh man, like maybe later I find out something completely different and now I got to go tell everyone like, oh shoot, this was wrong.
Yeah. No, I think the podcast is the venue for us to talk about things that are, not final yet.
Sure.
And I think that is fine as long as you're very open that this is all very preliminary, like we're not trying to say that this is the final word on anything, in the same way that we're hitting paddles and doing our initial impressions video, as long as we're upfront and focused on that. But yeah, and beyond that, it's kind of a burden, right? Like you want to make sure that you're presenting accurate information. So that's why I've gone down this rabbit hole and like really, there's just so much work being done behind the Q-Core scores that people don't see, and, it's developing that way with all the other things, So yeah, I guess that's a short way to answer it.
Yeah, no, I think that all that makes sense. I feel like it's just got to be a lot of weight. I mean, I sometimes feel that weight just with a paddle review, and let alone I'm doing it with all these like either trying to debunk myths or figure out all these things in pickleball. So I can just only imagine like just eats a lot of brain power trying to like think about all these things. But I think that makes sense. saying on the podcast like, hey, it's not a final result. We're still figuring out, but I guess this is interesting in what we're seeing so far.
Yeah, I think people, there's an appetite for preliminary information. It's just got to be really obvious. And even when you're presenting more advanced information, you've got to inform everybody, like we've been doing on this whole podcast today. Like, yes, there are limitations to the Canon and the PB Core formula and process, right? It's not an exact replica of a paddle's power. There are other components like the weight of the clamp, because we're adding that swing weight to the paddle swing weight. Does that affect it? So it's all a big learning experience, and I'm having a blast doing it. And as long as the people are informed who are watching this, and they get a good understanding of exactly how I'm doing this, and that I'm not trying to say that this is the final word and this is the exact truth, right?
So my follow-up question to that would be, if it was possible for you to review a paddle without ever even hitting it, would that be your preferred method of reviewing a paddle?
That would actually be a fun experiment, right? Like, what is a Q-core cannon and the spin testing? Like with never hitting it.
And
Hilarious.
soon he's gonna have like all these vibration nodes for feel, and then somehow he's gonna map sweet spot, and he's gonna be like, "Yeah, here's the whole review. I didn't even have to hit this thing."
Here's one thing interesting about reviewers in the position we're in, and we get to hit so many paddles. I think we all have kind of developed this special skill set of being able to look at a spec sheet or look at an X-ray and already understand have a pretty good assumption of how the paddle is going to play. That doesn't always pan out in the real world. Obviously, there's outliers that are like really shocking.
Right.
But we're really good at being able to know how a paddle is going to play, and then also quickly be able to adjust from one type of a paddle to another. We hear people all the time be like, "Oh man, it's taking me forever to get used to this paddle." But I think we have tested so many paddles and hit so many that we're pretty good at being able to go from one to another really fast.
Yeah, 100%. I kind of screwed myself maining the boomstick because it's such an outlier in terms of feel and power that it takes me longer as a paddle reviewer to map onto others, So the perfect paddle reviewer main paddle is something, if you're taking the high power category or a power paddle, something low in that category, because that's kind of the center of where most paddles land right now, and something in the center of the feel map,
Yeah.
Because you can go out from there, but to go from the extreme of the feel map and extreme firepower down to anything else is
Almost kind of like an NF maybe, or something in that realm.
Yeah. NF is a great example.
Yeah, totally. It's a very interesting skill because I mean, all the time I'll help friends, when they're like, "Hey, I'm looking for a new paddle," and I'll be like, "Oh, I got them all here, come try some," or whatever. Yeah. And I'll watch them try and switch to something for like a month, and they're just like, they just always pick up their old one, and it's so hard for them to get over it. And the joke has always become with a lot of my friends that I've tried to help do this, like, how do you do this every day? Like, I would suck at pickleball if I had to switch paddles this often.
And I'm always like, now you understand why I suck at pickleball.
No. Oh no.
That's what I say to all my friends too. I'm like, now you understand. I'm like, bro, I might be a 5'5" if I didn't have to do this.
I mean, I'll bring like 5 or 6 paddles to a play session and pretty much darn near play with a different paddle every game. And people are like, I don't understand how you can still play fine using a completely different paddle every game.
Yeah.
It is,
kind of bananas, but you have to learn how to do it as a paddle reviewer for sure.
Obviously, we still have our preferences and we're going to play better with one or the other.
Yes.
But being able to still at least play decent pickleball with completely different constructions.
Yeah, I mean, it's just getting the reps in, right? How many paddles have we hit since we started doing this? And
That'd be such a cool number to actually have of like the actual number of different model paddles we've hit.
Yeah. And I'm still learning like new things. Like we just developed the vocabulary to describe the feel of the paddle in a more kind of standardized way, like stiff, soft, dense, hollow.
Another contribution courtesy of John Q, simplifying the world of reviews.
Yep.
Seriously, when I came back from my break and I saw that, I was literally sitting there like, 1, John's a genius. 2, why didn't I ever think of this? I seriously, that is a really good thing. I think it will be very helpful for consumers.
Yeah. I mean, how many other things are out there that we haven't really kind of stumbled upon or figured out yet? It's really cool where we are and being able to kind of grow with the sport,
Totally.
How many times you get an opportunity to do this in your lifetime? That's kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Pretty rare.
I completely agree. So,
all right,
let's go through some of these questions. First one for you, John. Does pickleball ever burn you out?
No, I mean, by no means am I ever like, this sucks. Even when I'm like drilling or hitting a paddle that I don't necessarily like for a review, I'm always, conscious of the fact of how fortunate I am to be doing this. I think the one thing that does like mentally and physically burn me out more than other aspects of the job is like competition, like coming to compete in tournaments. Like I am fried for a couple of days after that, like just like mentally it takes a lot out of me, and I don't know what it is. And I'm kind of at the point now, it's like I perform way worse at tournaments than I do like most people do.
Yeah, that's normal. Yeah.
But there are people that are able to kind of, overcome that. And it's one of those things where I see the pattern. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna beat this. So like eventually you get stubborn. I don't know if I want to invest that kind of energy into this, but yeah, that's the one thing that does kind of burn me out is competition. That's why I've kind of dialed back to like for a year.
Which is really interesting because I I think one of my like probably bigger loves for pickleball is the competing aspect. Like I wouldn't say it's like it just gives me the most amount of energy, but like if you told me, Chris, you get to do one tournament a year, I would be pretty bummed.
Yeah.
Like I definitely like I am competing against you. I want to know how good I am against you. Obviously, there are times where it's very frustrating, and I've definitely walked away from tournaments like very angry and very drained. But yeah, it's just like I think it is an aspect that kind of like energizes me a little bit. So it's always interesting to hear the different things that energize people or don't within pickleball. Like clearly, you've learned competing is not the energizer.
Right. I mean, it's just who I've been, and I know you guys both are highly competitive, but in a very healthy way. So you're able to kind of walk that line, and a lot of people, I don't know, I feel like people struggle with competition and doing it in a healthy way. So you guys
Would you say you're more introverted or extroverted?
Definitely introverted. Yeah.
So being around all these people for,
that's part
8
of it too,
hours a
right.
day is exhausting.
Yeah.
The pattern that I just picked up on, I've noticed a trend. Usually when John competes, we're also there. We're extroverts. John's an introvert. Maybe it's us as extroverts that's draining John. Maybe that's the problem.
John's like, gosh, I need to get away from these two.
It's so funny.
How about you guys? Are you burnt out on anything?
I don't think it's pickleball itself that I get burnt out on. I think sometimes I get a little bit burnt out on, I just see the massive amount of like workload that there is. And when it's a really busy season and maybe my body's not able to keep up as much, I'll get a little burnt out in that like I'm very overwhelmed and it's like, how on earth am I going to catch up? And I've just accepted that you literally can't catch up. I would have to change my methodology of how I approach this entire channel if I didn't want to feel that way. If I didn't want to feel that way, I'd do first impressions where I hit it for an hour, move on to the next one, never do a review, and I'd probably feel much less burnt out because I would probably, for the most part, be caught up all the time. So I think that's what it is for me, because when I get to just play pickleball and I don't think a thing about work at all, whether it's testing a paddle or filming a game, I usually feel pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I'm never burnt out like, God, I just hate pickleball itself. That doesn't really happen.
Right.
I would say there are definitely times where I have gotten very burnt out, just because I am hyper competitive. I love competing. I've competed in a lot of sports before, and I kind of go a little crazy sometimes with the training. There's a couple periods in time where I can remember doing 2+ hour training sessions most days, not quite every day, but most days, and playing for up to 14 to 16 days in a row and just nonstop training. And just, there were times where I was like, I don't feel like I'm seeing any progression, and I'm just like, I'm over this. Like, I'm done. But obviously there is progression. It just gets so small the higher you get that it's hard to notice it over time. But yeah, definitely the burnout, I've felt it a few times, and now with some injuries, it's very frustrating. Like, I almost feel like I'm being set back. So, but right now I absolutely love it, and I'm going to keep grinding.
Yeah,
totally. All right, we'll go on to the next one. Actually, I'm going to save one. I'm going to save one for a little bit later. Someone said, why did you shift to elongated from wide body or hybrid? And I want to know the answer to this, because we had a good thing going here, John. We were promoting the same type of storyline here, and then you decided to leave
join
me
Team Isaac.
Yeah, what the heck? I'm on my own little island over here. This messed up.
Braden's still hybrid wide body too, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
So now it's even, I guess, 2 and 2.
All right, yeah. No, honestly, it was mostly feedback from my friends who were like, you got to put down that elongated because your serves and drives are way better, when I was playing against my friends.
You mean hybrid?
No, they're like, when you play with an elongated paddle, your serves and your drives are just noticeably way better.
Gotcha.
So, and that's true. I don't get as much leverage with shorter paddles. Now you're losing some hand speed at the kitchen, obviously, and losing a little bit of width and sweet spot. But yeah, I think those are two big strengths in my game: my serve and my drive. So
I would agree.
Yeah, so I'm kind of making a trade off right now with elongated paddles. And once you're with any shape, once you're dialed into it, it's harder to go back to a different shape.
Yeah, that was something I was kind of trying to give you and Matt some pointers when we were practicing the last couple of days. Your thirds are very good. Obviously, your serve has always been very good, but yeah, your drives are quite good.
Yeah, that's a lot of that is now the elongated paddle.
Well, just know the wide body and hybrid team will welcome you back anytime. We don't hold grudges over here. Those elongated guys, they hold a lot of grudges. We don't hold grudges over here. This was an interesting one. I don't know that we'll have an answer. Maybe we will, but it was, which paddles do y'all disagree the most on?
Oh, which paddles?
Yeah, like maybe
I didn't
that
read
like
that right.
you love and I hate, or vice versa. To be honest, I don't know that I can even think of one that I know you love and I hate, or vice versa. I don't know. I mean,
even less for you and I now. I mean, I feel like you and I used to disagree on a lot of paddles, but nowadays our preferences are fairly aligned.
like, okay, I'll take two that I can think of just for ones that I didn't like. Black Opal and Waves. Black Opal was like definitely not like the Waves, but like it was hard for me to use. I couldn't quite get along with it. It had a lot of things that I didn't personally like going for, but I recognized that a higher skilled player could probably utilize some of those traits. And then the Waves, like, I mean, I was probably the biggest proponent of like, I hate this paddle. So I don't even know what your thoughts were on those paddles. Those are just the most obvious ones for me.
Yeah, no, I guess it's funny. I was reading my answer to this. I was like, was I smoking crack on this? I put coffee.
Coffee.
That's such a good answer. Oh my god!
I read the question as, what do you most disagree on?
Yeah,
and Chris is not
paddles.
a coffee drinker, and I am. I was like, I can't think of many things we disagree on. So, but paddles, I think, yeah, I didn't mind the Waves. You know, I thought it was really similar to the TruFoam Genesis, but I didn't have as much time with it as you did. I didn't do a full review. Yeah, the Black Opal, I enjoyed it, and until I got to the point where I was like, yeah, I'm not able to really control this thing. I'm not high level enough to control it. So yeah, those are good examples. I can't think of any other paddles we really disagree on.
Yeah, it's like, which is interesting because I mean, everyone's like different and has like very different preferences in their paddles. So you'd almost think there'd like sometimes be just a much bigger disagreement on something.
Yeah. In terms of feel, like what's your favorite feel profile?
Dude, I feel like I can be swayed different ways. It just depends. Like, for example, I used the boomstick when it came out, loved it, had a great tournament result with it, feel like I can compete with it. Loco is a little bit less than that in terms of like hollow stiff, but still very hollow stiff. I used that for 4 or 5, maybe even 6 months. Loved that thing. Still think it's an amazing paddle, and I could probably go right back to it and be just fine. But now, like, this P1 is more on the closer to softer and dense than a Loco is. Right. Like, I think if you pick them up, you're like, oh yeah, one of these is really stiff and the other one is really not. Right. And currently, I love that thing. Like, I wouldn't say it's like perfect because I really struggle with the term like perfect paddle for me, but yeah, it's like, I don't know. I think anything from where the P1 is and up, I can be pretty convinced to like that.
Yeah. I've meandered around in terms of feel preferences too. I used to love the softer, denser. I felt like that provided a lot of control for me. And then I was in the soft hollow with the GX2 power. And now I'm like the extreme on the stiff hollow. So yeah. What about you, Isaac?
I feel like I'm copying answers here. I've gone all around. I feel like as of recent, I've liked the hollow stiff or really hollow and springy feels like the Inferno or the Boomstick.
Yeah.
But then now I would say softer and dense feeling like the Faculos. I really enjoy playing with that, and I feel like I play really well with it. It kind of just depends on the day.
Yeah.
Some days I play super well with really poppy, powerful paddles. And the other days I'm just like, well, I can't make a single third today.
Right.
So yeah, it kind of goes back and forth. I'd probably lean towards liking the stiffer, hollow feeling paddles. Play wise, probably better with the softer, denser feeling paddles.
That makes sense. But it sounds like the only quadrant none of us are big fans of is the stiff and dense quadrant.
Yeah, that's not
that might be one of
one.
Yeah, that might be one of the worst quadrants a paddle could be in. I don't know if I can think of a stiff, dense. There's not that many, but definitely none that I like.
That's the dark side of the moon that no one wants to travel to.
Just cut that part off of the chart, John. Just cut that off. No one even needs to go. Don't even tempt people to go there.
That's funny.
Okay, here's a fun one. I think this is I thought this was an interesting question because there'd be a fun explanation behind it. But then also you can just glaze your podcast co-host a little bit here. They said, with podcasts changing co-hosts over time, what makes Eddie such a good co-host in your eyes?
No, I like it. Eddie is flipping hilarious. He's got one of the best senses of humor out there. And that's needed for somebody like me, who likes to talk data all the time. Eddie grounds me, for sure. And I mean, we've been doing this for 2 years. We've developed this incredible rapport on camera, and good friends off camera too. So you just can't reps on anything. It just, you can't replicate that quickly.
Yeah.
And I think Eddie's underappreciated he is really tuned into paddles. You give him a paddle and in 10 minutes, he's got a good feel for that paddle. And,
very valuable as a co-host.
Yeah, for sure. And he's always been that way. I've always appreciated Eddie's insights into that. And that helps me too, kind of, if we're way off, then I'm always like, oh, that's curious. Why? And you're always going to be sometimes agreeing and other times not. And that's where the interesting stuff happens. But yeah, Eddie's got a full-time job outside of this, so he doesn't have hours and hours to play with these. So it's perfect for him to be able to map onto a paddle in just a few minutes and give some educated ideas on it. So yeah, all those reasons.
Yeah.
Eddie's the man.
He is the longest lasting co-host.
Isn't it crazy?
Out of all the podcasts.
Yeah,
Right.
It's impressive.
Is pretty nuts.
No, Eddie's great. He also has, I've on some of these trips and stuff when I've gotten to meet him and I have gotten to talk a lot. And actually, Eddie and I have a lot in common.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Eddie has great taste in steak.
Okay.
That is something that him and I have had many conversations about. So Eddie, you're watching this. Got good taste in steak.
The steak cut or the way you cook it? Or?
Both.
Okay.
Both. Yeah, we've had conversations about both of those things.
Right.
We kind of nerded out on steak a few times.
I like it.
So the reason I thought this was just fun, not funny, more so interesting, is I think people probably wonder, I don't know, there's been so many pickleball podcasts and either podcasts die or hosts and co-hosts change, all these different things. And I thought what was interesting is people might not understand why that happens. And I think one thing people probably don't realize is that, at least if you're talking maybe in the reviewer space, there's only 3 of us that are full-time.
Yeah.
Which is a very small amount of people relative to other niches that, do this type of thing. So only 3 that are full-time and really committed to hey, this is my job. I got to do a lot of things to keep improving this product, where, it would be in your best interest to continue keeping your same co-host, right? You build rapport and all that. And I think in other ones, it's hey, sometimes people are literally on these just because it's fun for them and they enjoy it. They're not really making money from it.
Right.
And so when you factor that in, either people's interest in pickleball fades over time and then they disappear as a co-host, or maybe they get burnt out on pickleball. And even if it's your job, right? You could be in a job and eventually be dude, I just don't like this job anymore. I quit. Right. And so I think that's why you see some co-host and all these different things changing. It's very different from can you just imagine if I'll just here's an easy example. If Joe Rogan just quitted podcasting or something, obviously he doesn't really have a co-host, but if he had a big co-host on there, and they quit after 5, 8, whatever years, that would be crazy.
Right.
Versus pickleball, it's I don't know, 6 months to a year and someone might swap out.
Yeah.
So, but obviously I think it's better if you keep it the same, assuming people, like the person or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, for sure.
So anyways, just thought that was interesting. Here's a funny one. Who has the biggest Melin hat collection?
I'm pretty sure I do not. I have 10 Melin hats.
Yeah, we got you beat. I stopped counting.
I'm not sure exactly how many you have. I know I am now up to 39.
39.
Oh my
Holy cow.
gosh.
Our middle brother Patrick, he is up to, I believe, in the realm of 50, mid 50s, I believe.
Wow.
Now, one thing that is for context, Patrick, our middle brother, his wife has a GovX discount. So he just eternally gets them 30% off.
Okay.
Yes. He also likes to resell. It's kind of a hobby for him.
Right.
It's just fun for him to buy them and resell them and just, get all these hats. But I do not. I like to keep and collect all my hats. So yeah. I'm up to 39 hats. I have quite the collection at the moment.
Yeah, I'm somewhere between 30 and 40 now. Kind of ridiculous. Now,
I would expect more. Huh? I would expect more because, you've got...
I'm kind of at the point now where I'm I got a lot of hats. I got a lot of hats.
You lost dedication. You've slowed down.
I always go back to like this white one. I've had this one for flipping forever now.
Yeah.
It's like my most used Melin hat by a million miles.
And just so everybody knows, somebody asked us this weekend. We're not sponsored by Melin. We don't get free hats from Melin.
Well, okay, I'll add to that. I have gotten some free hats from Melin.
Okay.
I've bought more than I have gotten for free.
Okay.
But as the relationship's gone on, I say relationship. First it was like, I came to them and was like, hey, do you want to sponsor me? Mm-hmm. They're like, no, we don't do that. And then they were like, we can kind of occasionally do some one-time codes for you. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And then I was like, could I get some free hats? And they were like, nah. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And then occasionally they'd just be like, here's a free hat. And I'm like,
Just
okay.
randomly send it to us without
Like,
really saying anything.
If I had to guess, I've probably gotten like 6 or 8 for free out of my close
I don't
to
even
40.
know if it's that many.
It's probably about that.
Really?
I need to reconnect with a contact because my contact fell out. I can't contact him anymore. So.
Yeah, they are gone. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, they're not sponsored. And I don't even like occasionally the only time I get anything out of it is when they give like a discount code.
I paid for like 99% of my hats.
Right.
And I genuinely sometimes like Will ruined all of us. It's all Will's fault. I was who would buy a hat that expensive? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And then you and I are talking about owning like 40.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. I do tell people, I'm like, look, they are extremely expensive hats. I'm well aware of that. Mm-hmm. But I have never once had to throw away a Melin. I've thrown away lots of other hats.
Yeah, that's true. I have not thrown away one Melin.
I'm obsessive about washing mine. If I sweat in it, it goes into the shower, scrub it with some shampoo, sling the water out, hang it on a hook outside. I've got dedicated hooks.
There was a time where I played in one a few times, like back-to-back days, and I just hadn't washed it, and it looked disgusting. And I was at the point where I was like, ooh, maybe this like needs to be retired and done. Mm-hmm. But then I washed it, cleaned it, soap, and I looked, I mean, it smelled perfect, looked perfect, and I mean, it continues to shock me how well they can be cleaned.
There was one that I almost threw away. I was like, this one's cooked because I didn't clean it for like a year, and I almost forgot I had it set in the back of a case, and it pulled it out. It was smelly and just sweat rings all over it. You know what I did? Stuck it in a bucket and poured water in, OxyClean. Soak it overnight in OxyClean. It came out sparkly new.
Yep. This is why, for anyone listening, every time you've heard us like rave about Melin, this is like, in my opinion, the single biggest reason I love these hats is because they clean so well. This white hat right now, it's probably stained because I just played pickleball on this today, but I'm going to go upstairs tonight. I will wash it with my hand and some soap, and it will come out perfect every time. Before these hats, I was throwing away hats left and right because they smelled so bad. The stains ruined it. Like the hats just wouldn't hold up. And like we said, haven't had to throw one of these away.
If anybody's curious and skeptical that we are biased because of commission codes, just know that we just did a 30-minute commercial for Melin, and none of us are getting any money for this.
Yeah, for free.
So true.
Yeah, literally nothing from this.
Yep.
I mean, it's truly one of the products. I don't know why I'm continuing to go on about it. No one cares. No one cares. Now I just
Some
feel
people
like,
care.
Now I just feel like talking about it.
We had a guy come up to us today at the venue that was like, dude, love you guys. I only wear Melins now because of you.
Yeah, it's just one of those, like, it is a product that I just genuinely, truly like. A lot of different hat styles and shapes. Not all of them fit my head. I mostly wear the A game, which is basically a baseball cap, because some of the other ones don't fit my head very well. But you can kind of find whatever you want. They clean well. Anyways, I'm going to stop pitching this. This is one of the funniest
Wouldn't it be
things
funny if Melin just clipped this whole podcast and just like ran ads nonstop?
It'd be smart.
And we still got nothing out of it.
We got nothing.
But you know what's funny about this? Here's what I'll say. We sit here and we kind of rag on Joola a little bit about like, oh, the value's not there. I don't know why people would buy this when you could buy a cheaper alternative. And yet here we are buying like $80 hats.
Yeah, but our hats aren't core crushing in 2 weeks. Okay,
the durability is top notch,
through the roof.
That's true. But yeah, it's definitely something way more expensive than what. Anytime you tell someone the hat's $80, they're like, you're out of your mind. Yeah, like there's no way.
For sure.
Okay. I guess the last one that I think we'll pretty much end on here is, and this could be a little long. Hopefully it's not. But
I actually have one more question after this too. It probably won't take too long, but go ahead.
Okay, got it. Foam versus polymer paddles. Now that I'm saying this is like a whole long thing, let's try and keep this high level. someone just basically, I think they want to know like why foam, why polymer. And I think this is like a pretty important thing because I've said this before, but one of the things that I think has kind of been missed and maybe the reviewer should have done a better job over the last year with foam was that everyone got so excited because, hey, this is a new material. We've always used the same material in pickleball paddles. And, you know, there was kind of this hype train and core crushing is now gone. But I think some of that hype got interpreted by consumers as this is just better than a Gen 3. But I think Gen 3 is one of the standing technologies that is equivalently good as Gen 4 foam paddles. And it really just comes down to like a feel thing at that point. So it's like, do you want the durability of foam or do you just want the performance of Gen 3? Personally, in my opinion, I think there are full foam paddles that are just as good, if not better for me, than a Gen 3 paddle. I don't think it's like, oh, Gen 3 is only performance and foam is only durability. But I figured it'd be kind of fun to go over how you think about it and, you know, any thoughts like that.
Yeah. I mean, I could boil it down into something really simple. So I think foam has more potential. Honeycomb polypropylene is more familiar. Right?
Sure.
And there's a lot of value to familiarity. Like we get a main paddle, we like how it feels. There's no reason to change, and changing is hard, right? But as paddle reviewers, we're more open to it because, you know, that's our job, right? I do think that there are some, you know, definitive perks to full foam, at least the current ones. The fully floating thermoformed full foam paddles, I feel like have objectively better sweet spots than anything else on the market.
I agree.
Yeah. Is it huge? No. Like the Joola Pro 4s still have good sweet spots, but I feel like the full foam paddles edge them out now. Yeah. And yeah, there's the durability issues. So not to say that full foam paddles are invincible. And there's some that do break quite a bit. The boomstick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like edge guard type thing.
Yeah, and there's been some disbonding issues, but for the most part, I hope I'm not jumping the gun here with disbonding. But I heard some talk when I was in China from the factories of, okay, we know why they were disbonding. It was from off gassing of the epoxy when it touched foam. It off-gassed differently than it did with honeycomb polypropylene. And in a thermoform paddle where everything is sealed up, it's like a drum head, that gassing just expands and pops the face off the core. So they're at least aware of one reason why they were disbonding, and we have been seeing less disbonding.
Well, I'd say if you compare disbonding to core crushing,
not even close.
It's not even, I mean, we were walking all around the Mesa PPA venue today, and how many core crush Gen 3s did we hear? And I saw tons of foam paddles, and I wasn't going, that one's disbonded, that one's disbonded.
Yeah. Oh, you can hear a disbonded paddle a mile away.
Yeah.
It's like a horrible clapping sound. So like I said, I feel like full foam has higher potential, higher ceiling, and honeycomb is just more familiar.
Yeah,
I would agree with that. The one downside to foam paddles, and this is quite small, as we were talking about core crushed and disbonded paddles, is I think, at least with Gen 3 and core crush paddles, there's a pretty easy, definitive way to test it on site in the real world with our hands and know if something's core crushed. Versus full foam paddles, obviously it's very noticeable, right? But I feel like you kind of have to have a trained ear and understand what that sound is, because it changes slowly over time. It's not often that it's like, okay, you've got a brand new foam paddle and then instantly overnight it just disbonds and sounds completely different, right? So coming up with a method to actually be able to definitively say, yes, this is disbonded, or no, it's not, because I can grab someone's paddle and be like, see, it's core crushed, but I can't grab someone's foam paddle and show them definitively like, yeah, it's disbonded.
Yeah.
What I think is the important distinction and why I really appreciate foam paddles in the market is because as a competitive player is when foam paddles like disbond or something bad happens to it, usually the performance gets worse. And so if you're competing, it's like, okay, you're playing at a disadvantage. Whereas like a Gen 3 breaks, you're, depending on the play style, now playing at an advantage. And people like that advantage. So it's like, I just appreciate that it's like, okay, it goes dead over time. You don't get better with it over time, and then have this dispute on court about like, hey, your paddle's broken, and then they're like, no, bro, I just hit the ball really hard. Like my drive is sick, and you just suck at blocking. It's like, it doesn't really happen with foam paddles. And so from a competitive integrity standpoint, that's where I think foam wins and is great. But I understand why people still like Gen 3s. Like I would never tell someone you're crazy for liking a Gen 3.
Yeah.
I think they still have a place. I still think Gen 3s can be a good paddle. But
I agree that most of the time they do lose performance and kind of die. But I will say, I've had a friend who I've talked about multiple times, has just the most insane forehand. And he was playing with, I gave him one of our Adidas 16 millimeter, the new Adidas paddles, and it disbonded. Let me tell you, that was one of the scariest things I've ever seen. That paddle.
To be fair, that's a Gen 3 though.
Is it?
Yeah,
I thought it was full foam.
No, it's not full foam. Yeah, it's a Gen 3. It's a Gen 3, but with like foam notched cutouts like an NF.
They can disbond too, though.
Interesting. Yeah, I was going to say,
sure.
it wasn't core crushed.
Yeah.
I know it wasn't core crushed. It was definitely disbonded, but yeah, just very scary rockets.
Shooting rockets, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I appreciate it from that standpoint. But, I'm sure polymer's still going to be around for a bit. I think people like it, and they're
It's
used
the
to it.
rooster, man. It
Definitely
ain't gonna die. Polymer.
Yeah. I'm definitely on the foam train, but I understand that polymer definitely still will have a place in the market for quite some time.
Yeah. All right. What's your question?
Yeah, I have an interesting question. So with how much testing you're doing in the lab with the Canon, nerding out on all this stuff, obviously you still have to spend some time on court playing. You come to tournaments every once in a while. Right. You had that series where I can't remember his name. You had a coach and
Scott Fliegelman. Yeah.
Scott. Yeah. How much time are you dedicating to progressing and getting better at pickleball? Because I'm sure, as we all care, we all would like to be better at pickleball.
No.
So how much time are you dedicating towards drilling, and if any?
Yeah. So that all went on hiatus when I had foot surgery, right?
Thanks, Isaac.
Yeah, that was partially my fault.
That's probably just my fault for getting old. That's what happened. But so the foot surgery set me back, and Scott is a fantastic coach, but it's not like a regular thing. And even the series is just kind of like, if we think of an idea for a new episode, we'll do it. But it's not like we're going to meet every 2 weeks to do this, and it doesn't really match. It's not really in the niche of my channel anyway. So I think it confuses the YouTube algorithm. But there are a lot of people that love it, and will continue to do it. When the opportunity arises. In terms of your question, like how much am I drilling? It's probably once a week, I'll do a dedicated drill session, and my goal isn't to become pro or anything. But everybody wants to see progression, and I do see progression. I log most of my matches in PB Vision, and I see the steady upward trend, and that's fun to me. But yeah, something about the competition is like, I don't think I want to set goals in terms of like duper anymore, because maybe I will, but yeah, that seems to be counterproductive for me.
Sure.
you know. Yeah, mostly I'm, I want to be proficient at pickleball and continue to improve and continue doing what I'm doing, which is like the funnest things I can do in pickleball is like translate how a paddle feels on court and all the fun on the court into the lab, and then kind of have those blend into something that the viewers can kind of get some useful information out of,
Yeah, for sure. Well, you're doing it very well.
And you probably understand. I mean, I think any reviewer understands this. Even with me doing the Chasing 5-0 series, I haven't really rebooted it back for this year. Obviously, I played this tournament. We filmed it. Don't know if it'll turn into a video or not, but there is such a tough balance of, we talked about how much time it takes just to do reviews and how many paddles are coming out, and you already can't cover them. So now you're thinking doubling or maybe time and a halving your on-court time just to try and get better at pickleball if you wanted to ignore paddles. Because truly, I think if you want to really get better at pickleball and that's your main focus, you're not going to take a new paddle you're testing every time. Right. When I did Chasing 5-0 last year, that's why my reviews got slow at the end of the year. I was basically just using the Loco because I was like, I want to get better, and I can't think about hitting a different paddle every time I go to a drill session.
Exactly.
And so I really think it's a hard balance. I think it's honestly a big internal struggle for me right now, because I really want to get better at the game. I really want that number to say 5-0, but I also know at the end of the day that reviews are why people watch me. They don't watch me because my duper says a certain thing. So it's like, am I going to invest all this time into that just so a number can say that on paper, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a really tough balance, but I want it. It's going to get there eventually, but it just might be slow. Except I got to do it before 30 because Isaac said I couldn't do it before I was 30, and I'm 30 in June.
You're running out of time.
So there might not be any more long grit testing now that I just said that until June.
A little tag-on question. Do you think that there is a skill level that's too high for a paddle reviewer where they're beyond where most of the people that are watching them?
I think this is a really interesting question. Isaac and I have talked about this back and forth. I don't think it's necessarily skill-based entirely, though I see where you're going with that, right? Like if you're a 6'5" player, you're like hidden center all the time. Your priorities and what you want in the paddle are different. You can do things that an amateur can't do, or things that matter to them don't matter to you. But I think at the end of the day, what matters most is being able to translate what you feel and how you can articulate that to a person. That's why I think sometimes you don't need to be the world's greatest player to be a good reviewer, as long as you can give the consumer the information they're looking for. But it does make you wonder, right? Like if you are a 6'5", like do you really understand how big the sweet spot is? Like, are you missing as much? I mean, if you look at my ball dust, I'm using the whole face, baby. So
yeah, no, I feel like, what do you think, Isaac? Is there a skill ceiling?
I don't know. I think Christopher hit it pretty well on the head. I think as long as you're able to understand the upsides of a paddle, the downsides of a paddle, what it's doing well, and convey how it feels to an audience, I think that's probably what's most important. Obviously, we have the full spread of people, skill level and reviewers. We've got people at some lower levels. We've got people, moving up the ladder. You, Chris, up to me, and then even, people like BK who are very good players.
Yeah.
And then you even have people like now James trying to get into reviewing paddles. Obviously, that's a whole nother topic we could dive into. But I don't know if I'd say that there's really a cap on where it is.
Right.
But it's just as long as you're able to convey that information accurately to an audience, that's all that matters.
Right. Yeah, I think more than like skill level, I think there needs to be like a proficiency in pickleball for people to speak intelligently about paddles. But I think it's like anything, it's reps doing paddle reviewer stuff, hitting a bunch of different paddles, which is more important than anything being a paddle reviewer, because you are able to pick up on nuances between paddles and feel profiles and speak, because a lot of pros, frankly, don't know anything about paddles.
The worst
paddle reviewer.
I have gotten to be close with a lot of these pros now and stay with them and here and there. And there are some that are pretty decent about their knowledge of construction and differences and feel profiles and everything, and some that really think they know. So
being good at pickleball does not translate into giving good advice about paddles.
So true.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, yeah, without a doubt. But now you got me thinking, John, after you say that, now you got me thinking if maybe I shouldn't get any better. Maybe I've hit peak reviewer skill level, and if I get any better, I'm now unrelatable.
you become from the nerd level to the jock level, right? You gotta stay in that
I want to
range.
be in the nerd level. That's where I want to be.
Now everybody's gonna know you're always 3'5" forever, Chris.
That's true.
So true.
That might be the meanest thing John's ever said. And John doesn't have a mean bone in his body.
John never pokes at anybody.
I said that lovingly.
Yeah, that's true. You did. That was yes. Yeah, John is. I'm sure, as many of you all know, John's probably the nicest person in pickleball. So.
And we all know you're way better than I am. So if you're 3'5", what am I?
I don't know if I'd say way better. I saw him, Chris, and his partner play you and Matt the other day. A lot closer than I would have expected.
They gave us 6 points, and they're like, "That's enough of that. We're gonna win the next 11 points in a row."
I will say it was very funny after those first 6 points. Zach just boom, boom. The amount of balls that John's went. Huh? But everyone does that. This happens to 6-0s. This isn't
guy,
just a John thing.
Chris's partner, he's like, "I'm going to show you this, and it's going to go across your right shoulder."
And you just stare and watch.
You did bring up something interesting over this week that you mentioned to me. I obviously am in the reviewer space. I love what I do. But if I ever got out of this, I think I'd really enjoy being a coach. I was kind of helping you and Matt do some coaching stuff. I quite enjoy it. So maybe that's another space I'll have to look into.
So you'd be good at it. You see things and you're very good at communicating.
Oh, well,
those
thank you.
things. Yeah, so.
I had a lot of fun kind of giving you and Matt some advice over the weekend.
Yeah, that was good. That was good.
Sweet.
We didn't take your advice in the tournament, unfortunately.
Maybe I gave some really bad advice. Man, maybe it didn't work.
It was all out of mine. I was like, I'm going to hit the ball as hard as I can every time.
John said, "See ball, hit ball hard." Maybe win point.
Oh man,
No, this was great, John. I appreciate you being on the pod. You're always fun to talk to whenever we do these events, and it's just
It's always fun to hang out with you guys. Should we give the viewers and listeners an incentive if they made it to hour 2?
Well, yeah. What's going to be our word?
John, I think you got to come up with the
you
word.
gotta come
You're
up
the
with the word.
guest.
All right. Together we can name the ball cannon.
Hey,
yes,
we
I
can
like
name the ball
this.
cannon.
It's green, right?
Yes.
It's
Army
painted green.
Army green.
Okay. What if it's the green monster?
Green
I like the green monster.
The green monster.
That thing is formidable. It is a monster. That's
what
for
I'm saying.
sure.
It kills paddles.
600 pounds of green steel.
This should absolutely not be the name, and I don't even know why this is the name that came to my mind. But as soon as you said we got to name it, Gladys was the name that came. I don't know why, dude. Don't ask me. It's a horrible name. I'm not saying it's a good name. That's just what came to mind. Don't use
green
that.
Gladys.
Yeah, there we go. Green Gladys. Now you got to add a word to it. We need
what's
3 words.
yours? I've had mine. He's had his. Now, what's your name?
I can't think of anything pithy on the spot. So, I
We'll pick between the two now.
We've got all we need between Green Monster and Gladys. You know, my neighbor was a Gladys who called the cops on me all the time for drumming. Yeah.
Wait, actually, her name is Gladys?
Her name was Gladys. Yeah.
Maybe that's subconsciously why it popped in my head.
It went from my head to yours. Let's screw it. We'll do Green Gladys.
Green Gladys.
As
all right.
the name.
If you made it this far, John will donate half his paddle collection. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. For legal reasons, that's a joke. That's a joke. But no, seriously, thanks for coming on, and we'll have to do this again at some point.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks,
Sweet.
guys.
Yeah.
Peace.